Yuan Onkong's eyes bulged with fury. Realizing there was no way to dodge, he grit his teeth and drew the great sword at his waist. The sword was pitch black, with the hilt carved into the likeness of a black crow. As he swung it, endless flocks of black crows burst forth, spreading across the sky until the heavens themselves seemed to turn dark. The cloud of black crows surged to devour everything. But when Su Zimo's blade light descended, no matter how many black crows there were, or how fierce the sword aura, they were all swallowed by that single strike. Even Yuan Onkong himself, when he opened his eyes, felt the heavens and earth receding from him. The world spun violently. His consciousness dissolved. All that remained before him was that eternal, undying blade light consuming everything in sight. With a thunderous boom, all was ended. Yuan Onkong didn't even have time to scream. He was devoured by the blade's power, turning to dust without even bones left behind. Su Zimo's voice was calm as his gaze swept across the crowd. Among all present, anyone stronger than him may continue to jump around if they wish, he said coolly. Here, my words are the rules. Whether you accept them or not, swallow it. The moment his words fell, everyone looked toward the spot where Yuan Onkong had died, where a single streak of eternal blade intent still remained, slicing through the void. A chill crept up the spines of many. Even those with complaints dared not speak. Who among them could truly claim to be stronger than Yuan Onkong? Most were roughly the same level, and he had been slain with one strike. One strike that endured eternally. Such power, even among saint sovereigns, was formidable beyond measure. Su Zimo ignored the crowd and sat down once more in meditation. The audience, as he called them, had not yet fully arrived. He wouldn't allow anyone to tear down his stage prematurely. Xiao Anshan and the others sat cross-legged around him, quietly guarding the area. As time passed, more and more cultivators gathered. The first to arrive from the 6 great god realms were the people of the Vermilion Flame god realm. Hearing Su Zimo's declared rule, the surrounding rogue cultivators had expected a massive clash. After all, they were all god realm elites, why should they fear him? To their surprise, however, the Vermilion Flame god realm's party chose to back down. Without saying a word, they quietly waited at the side. Su Zimo opened his eyes and asked Xiao Anshan and Shangguan Xian, "These past few days, have you heard any word of the Radiant Court?" Xiao Anshan frowned. Strangely, while every other god realm has been busy fighting for ancestral flames, the Radiant Court has vanished altogether. Not a trace of them anywhere. Go ask around among the rogues, Su Zimo said. See who's heard anything about them. Tell everyone that whoever brings news of the Radiant Court will be allowed to enter the Thunder Region's ancestral flame first. Shangguan Xian asked, "You think the Radiant Court is plotting something?" "I don't think, I'm certain of it," Su Zimo replied with a faint smile. Xiao Anshan and Shangguan Xian went to question the crowd. The moment word spread that such news could earn early entry to the Thunder Ancestral Flame, cultivators began to whisper and scheme. Soon, Xiao Anshan returned with reports that only deepened the mystery. Some said they'd seen the Radiant Court in the Metal region. Others claimed sightings in the Wood region. In fact, people across all 5 regions had reported encountering them. It seemed the Radiant Court had deliberately circled through all 5 regions, not to seize ancestral flames, but for some unknown purpose. Whatever it was, it could not be good. Su Zimo fell silent in thought. Before long, after the Vermilion Flame god realm, the Divine Crow god realm arrived, led by none other than the Shangguan Heavenly clan. And at their head was Shangguan Wanner. Their arrival stirred an immediate uproar. The Chaos Fire god realm's arrogance has gone too far. It's about time someone taught them a lesson. Perfect timing for the Shangguan Heavenly clan. I heard the Chaos Fire god realm injured Shangguan Xian, the younger daughter of the Shangguan Lord, Shangguan Xiongba. You're behind on your gossip. Look over there. That woman beside Su Zimo is Shangguan Xian herself, Xiongba's second daughter. Whispers spread through the crowd as the Shangguan Heavenly clan approached. Leading them was a woman in a flowing white robe, Shangguan Wanner. Her eyes were tranquil, as calm as still water. Shangguan Xian's expression trembled slightly, her fists tightening unconsciously. Su Zimo lightly patted her shoulder. "Relax," he said casually. "Learn from her. Stay calm." "I'll fight her sooner or later," Shangguan Xian said through clenched teeth. "Honestly," Su Zimo said, shaking his head, "you may have stepped into the Saint's sovereign realm, but you're still not her match." "You can't know that without fighting," Shangguan Xian shot back. Su Zimo smiled faintly. "If you don't believe me, go ahead and challenge her. But let's make one thing clear. If you get yourself killed, I won't save you." He had rescued her once out of personal regard, but he was no one's babysitter. His words were final. It was up to her how to take them. Shangguan Xian fell silent, forcing herself to calm down. Deep down, she trusted Su Zimo's judgment. He had never been wrong before. The Shangguan Heavenly Clan had arrived with 3 members, Shangguan Wanner, and 2 men named Shangguan Tiger and Shangguan Dragon. Within the family, the Tiger and Dragon siblings ranked just below Wanner in strength and prestige. When they learned of Su Zimo's self-imposed rules, both Shangguan Dragon and Shangguan Tiger looked to Wanner. They followed her commands implicitly, not out of obligation but genuine conviction. Without a word, Shangguan Wanner stepped forward to examine the sealed Thunderfire ground. "This area is off limits," Xiao Anshan said, stepping up to block her path. Wanner glanced at him once, then struck. Her palm shot out without hesitation. Xiao Anshan's expression darkened. Though he had heard her name before, it was only now, standing before her, that he truly understood the suffocating pressure she exuded. Among their generation, only Su Zimo had ever made him feel this way. He reacted instantly, igniting his chaos fire body. Dense flames of primordial chaos wrapped around him. With a thunderous crash, their palms collided. Sparks scattered like stars bursting apart. Shangguan Wanner stood firm, unmoving, while Xiao Anshan, despite his primordial flame God King physique, was forced several steps back. "Excellent!" someone in the crowd shouted. Many among the onlookers were secretly delighted. The Chaos Fire God realm had been far too domineering, drawing the ire of everyone present. Now, with someone strong enough to suppress them, the people's hearts naturally sided with her. It's about time. Let the Chaos Fire God realm learn that they can't do whatever they please here. That's right. Go. Shangguan Heavenly Clan. Bring down the Chaos Fire God realm. Hearing the voices of the crowd, Xiao Anshan's face turned grim. He raised his head toward Shangguan Wanner, ready to strike back, but then felt a hand pat his shoulder. "That's enough. Go tend to your injuries," Su Zimo said as he stepped forward slowly. "Be careful," Xiao Anshan said solemnly. Su Zimo smiled and nodded, then continued forward. His gaze met Shangguan Wanner's, the 2 locking eyes like 2 forces that could split heaven and earth. "I make the rules here," Su Zimo said evenly. "The sealed ground of this domain is not to be opened. That's final." But Shangguan Wanner ignored him. Her right hand descended, wreathed in roaring black fire. This fire was dense and viscous, like flames drawn up from the depths of hell itself. Within it burned death, pure, absolute death. Merely gazing upon the flames made one feel their life force draining away. "The 9 nether hellfire," someone in the crowd gasped. It said that 30 million meters beneath the surface, someone once built a 9 nether prison. All who opposed that person were thrown inside and tortured alive until death. Over time, countless lives perished there, so many that no one could count them. That place made hell itself pale by comparison. Eventually, when the endless resentment of those dead souls ignited, a flame was born, the 9 nether hellfire. It was the return of death itself, the embodiment of true extinction. When Shangguan Wanner's palm struck down, the air quaked with unimaginable force. The blazing hellfire surged forth, intent on annihilating everything. Su Zimo merely chuckled coldly and raised his own palm to meet hers. From his hand surged the flame of Zhurong, the ancient divine flame few in the world truly understood. The instant Shangguan Wanner felt the heat radiating from that fire, her brows furrowed slightly. With a thunderous crack, their condensed spirit palms collided in midair. This time, the 9 nether hellfire proved fragile like paper before the divine flame of Zhurong. It shattered instantly. Su Zimo's palm strike pressed on, unbroken, surging straight toward her. Shangguan Wanner retreated several steps and drew her sword with a graceful motion. A blinding sword aura erupted from the void. With a resounding boom, the sword energy split the descending palm apart, finally halting its advance. In her hand now gleamed a long black sword, but calling it a sword seemed insufficient. Chains wrapped around its hilt, and each link bore a tiny skull that screamed in agony. "So you're the one who injured my sister," Shangguan Wanner said, her eyes narrowing slightly. When Su Zimo had defeated Shangguan Jin before, Wanner had not been present, but she had certainly heard of it. "I am," Su Zimo replied with a faint smile. "And if you'd like to experience the same, I don't mind sending you to join her fate or worse. Don't you think you're being a bit too arrogant?" Wanner asked quietly, her tone icy. "Arrogant?" Su Zimo sneered. "I was born domineering. What can you do about it?" Wanner raised her black sword, sword intent swirling around her hand. Nightfall of 3 worlds. First night, heaven sacrifice. The blade began to wail mournfully. Around her, waves of dark mist rose, each carrying an aura of ritual and sacrifice. Wherever that black miasma spread, it devoured the world itself. Someone in the crowd brushed against the mist by accident, and was instantly swallowed whole. "Be careful!" someone shouted in panic. "That black aura is sacrificial energy. Touch it, and you'll become an offering." Everything could be offered up in that sacrifice: humans, plants, air, even the heavens and earth themselves. The sacrificial aura grew denser and denser, until it condensed into a colossal black greatsword that cleaved down toward Su Zimo, intending to swallow him whole as an offering. "This is rather interesting," Su Zimo said with a grin. He lifted his blade, Shadow Tyrant, and slashed upward toward the heavens. "Eightfold sky split," he shouted softly. "Let's see who devours whom." He hadn't used this technique in a long time, not since someone had passed it to him when he was still at the Grand Emperor realm. The blade carried the power to rend the skies themselves. Radiant light burst forth, blazing like a newborn sun. When the blade descended, the sky cracked open. Chaotic void currents surged violently all around. When the sky-rending blade light met the devouring sword aura, the explosion everyone expected didn't happen. Instead, the 2 powers clashed and wrestled endlessly, each refusing to yield. The devouring sword aura engulfed the blade light. Yet the next instant, Su Zimo's power erupted once more, splitting the sword energy apart in a violent detonation. Wanner's brows furrowed. Su Zimo was far more troublesome than she had anticipated. "Nightfall of 3 worlds, second night, royal summon," she intoned. This time, she held the sword before her eyes. All the entities that the black mist had devoured earlier were now being completely sacrificed. That sacrifice served to summon something far greater. "The demon from the 9 nether prison?" someone whispered in horror. The 9 nether hellfire came from the underworld itself, and this black sword, surely it too was an infernal weapon. Even from a distance, one could sense what it did: devour living things and offer them as sacrifices to summon a demon from hell. As the sacrificial offerings were consumed, the surrounding darkness surged upward, engulfing half the heavens. Su Zimo lifted his gaze. A massive creature slowly emerged from the black haze. "Little girl," a deep, commanding voice rumbled from within the darkness. "Why have you called for me?" "King of Hell," Shangguan Wanner said coldly, pointing her sword towards Su Zimo. "Grant your punishment of darkness, destroy him." The voice chuckled. "Next time, bring something more appetizing. These offerings are hardly to my taste." Then the darkness churned, and the monster revealed itself. Its body was enormous, towering like a mountain, wreathed in a dense aura of death. But more horrifying than its size was its composition. It wasn't made of flesh and bone, but from countless human corpses stacked together. Faces, limbs, broken skulls. Every inch of it was writhing with remnants of the dead. Many in the crowd turned away, gagging in disgust. The monster lifted its head, locking its gaze on Su Zimo. "Wait!" It growled suddenly, its expression shifting, its hollow eyes fixed on Su Zimo with something like shock, almost fear. You're that one." Su Zimo frowned slightly, puzzled. Su Zimo knew clearly that he didn't recognize this monster. Yet, the moment their eyes met, the creature grew visibly tense and uneasy. You, the monster stammered, unable to speak coherently for a long while. "What about me?" Su Zimo asked, frowning. "You shouldn't be alive," the monster said at last, backing away several steps. "You died. You clearly died in the final battle." "Oh," Su Zimo sneered faintly. "So you do know me." But inside, he already had a theory. The monster probably didn't know him personally. It had likely seen the previous Infernal Lord. That being was from the Demon Descent era. The former Infernal Lord had perished during the final battle against the heavens. Since then, the history of the demon race had faded into myth. Few in the current age even knew such things truly happened. If this monster had seen the Infernal Lord, that meant it was a being from the ancient Demon Descent era, or perhaps even older, one from the Primordial Age. Such an ancient existence was rare indeed. "For an old relic like you," Su Zimo said with a light laugh, "to end up working as someone else's hired muscle, that's quite pitiful." Who said I was anyone's hired muscle?" the monster grumbled defensively. Su Zimo tilted his chin toward Shangguan Wanner. "She can command you?" The monster snorted. "She's not qualified to command me. She sacrifices living beings and I fight in exchange. Once she summons me, I can devour everyone here." "What?" The crowd's faces darkened in horror. They had thought Shangguan Wanner had simply summoned a monster to aid her, but now they realized that they themselves were part of the sacrifice. "What a vicious plan!" someone shouted angrily. "Two birds with one stone. She feeds the monster and wipes out her rivals in one go. Then she can claim the ancestral flame for herself. She's worse than the Chaos Fire God Realms people," another roared. In an instant, fury spread among the spectators. But Shangguan Wanner only smiled coldly. "We are competitors. Killing you all is perfectly natural. Did you really think I'd fight for your sake? You're nothing." After saying that, she turned her gaze back to the monster floating in the void. "I've already sacrificed these people to you," she said coldly. "Now kill him. Why are you hesitating? This isn't like you, Nine Nether Hell King." The creature looked at Su Zimo for a long moment, then asked, "Do you even know who he is?" "A human from the Chaos Fire God Realm," Shangguan Wanner replied, frowning. The monster inhaled deeply, its eyes narrowing. A distant, haunting memory stirred within it. An image seared into its mind from ages past. In that faraway Demon Descent era, the might of the demon race had thundered across all 9 heavens. Wherever the demonic armies marched, all races bowed. It didn't matter how ancient a monster was, or how mighty a sacred sect might be. Even a saint sovereign was but an insect before them. Every living being had to kneel beneath the demon army's iron hooves. In the deepest corner of the 9 heavens, hidden from the world, the legends of the 9 Nether Hellfire were not myths, they were real. And the truth was even more terrifying than the tales. The one known as the 9 Nether Hell King was the very creature from those legends. In the depths of the earth, tens of millions of meters below, he had built a prison that was more terrible than any hell. There he performed unspeakable experiments. Corpses and blood were the colors of that world. Screams and wails, its music. He could no longer remember how many beings he had slaughtered. For 1,000,000 miles around his domain, not a single living creature dared approach. It was a wasteland of death. Then, when the demonic legions arrived, he refused to obey the Infernal Lord's commands. He led an army of 1,000,000 undead against the demon race in open war. That battle became the nightmare that haunted him for eternity. A man had descended from the heavens, holding a sky-piercing spear. With just one look, That man froze his very soul and stilled the blood in his veins. The spear churned the heavens themselves, and even the laws of the world bent to his will. The Nine-Nether Hell King, who had once feared nothing under heaven, was struck down in a single blow, his soul scattered to the winds. Only a fragile wisp of his spirit survived, and he spent countless ages rebuilding his strength, from the ancient age to the Middle Era, and now to the present day. He slowly opened his eyes, ending the flood of memories, and said flatly to Shangguan Wanner, "This time I refuse." "What?" Shangguan Wanner's brows knitted. She knew the Hell King well. Every time he was allowed to devour, he went into a frenzy. This was the first time she had ever seen him decline. "No reason," the Hell King replied coolly. "But I'd advise you not to provoke him." "You'd better think carefully," Shangguan Wanner said, her tone darkening. "If you refuse to devour now, who knows how long it'll be before I summon you again." Su Zimo chuckled from the side, clearly amused. "You, being threatened by a little girl like her, how disgraceful." He could sense how powerful the Hell King was. In his prime, he had likely been even stronger, yet now he was being coerced by Shangguan Wanner, who was only a chaos primordial. Impressive, but hardly enough to command such a creature. "This is all your fault," the monster roared, glaring at Su Zimo with hatred that seemed to shake the world. "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have had my soul shattered back then. I crawled through the depths for countless years, across several eras, just to regain this fragment of strength. And then I met her." He explained bitterly that he had no choice but to make a pact with Shangguan Wanner. He gave her the 9 nether hellfire and part of his inheritance, even agreed to fight for her on one condition. She had to bring him back to the surface, where he could devour enough living beings to restore his true power. He needed her for that. Without her help, trapped in the endless darkness underground, he would never recover. Despite his resentment, he no longer wanted to fight Su Zimo. The man before him, whether he was the same being as that figure from long ago or not, had become an indelible nightmare in his heart. "Don't threaten me," the Hell King said coldly, casting a heavy glance at Shangguan Wanner. His aura flared, oppressive and suffocating. Then he turned to Su Zimo. "If you can kill her," he said, "I'll serve you." "That depends," Su Zimo replied with a faint smirk. "How do you compare to primordial flame?" "In my prime," the Hell King said proudly, "there were fewer than 5 beings in existence I would even consider cautious of, and it was not among them." "Good enough," Su Zimo said with a laugh. "Then I'll take you." The monster bellowed a roar that shook the heavens. Darkness surged, and his massive form dissolved into the demonic mists. Beside them, Shangguan Wanner's expression twisted in disbelief. The monster she had summoned had done nothing, and had betrayed her instead. "Go on," Su Zimo said with a smile. "Show me what else you've got. People say your talent is extraordinary, but from the looks of it, that's only because you had the 9 nether Hell King helping you. You think you know everything, don't you?" Shangguan Wanner sneered. "But you're just another lost soul wandering in the fog." "You're not qualified to lecture me," Su Zimo replied, shaking his head. The blade in his hand, Shadow Tyrant, was already radiating boundless blade intent. Across from him, Shangguan Wanner's black sword aura surged across the sky and earth. Her technique, Night Descends on 3 worlds, still had one final move, but without the Hell King's cooperation, she couldn't unleash it. The aura of death around her sword began to spread. She wasn't relying solely on the Hell King. Even without him, she believed she could defeat Su Zimo. Just as the two were about to clash, laughter drifted from the distant horizon. "How lively this is," a voice called. "You all seem to have plenty of time on your hands." Everyone turned their heads toward the sound. A blazing golden sun exploded in the sky. Out of the light stepped 3 figures walking through the air. It was the 3 envoys of the Radiant Court, led by Murong Qing, the Temple Saintess, one of the most prominent among her generation. "Lord Su, we meet again," Murong Qing said with a soft smile. She was dressed in a flowing golden robe that perfectly concealed her graceful figure. Her long hair, now turned completely golden, shimmered with light, giving her an exotic beauty. "The Radiant Court certainly has good timing," Suzimo said. "Well, we saw everyone gathered here. It would have been rude not to join the fun," Morong Qing replied. As she approached Suzimo, she leaned close, her voice low enough that only the two of them could hear. "Lord Su, you should know this is a major affair for the Radiant Court. Surely you wouldn't want to disrupt our plans." "I'm not your accomplice," Suzimo said lightly. "I don't even know what your plan is. How could I possibly disrupt it?" "You can guess," Morong Qing said with a knowing smile. "Even if just for my sake, stand aside for now. Whatever grudge you have with her, settle it later. The Radiant Court stands firmly on your side." "I don't care whose side you're on," Suzimo replied. "But I must admit, it's rather entertaining watching you all play your little games." After all, the main players usually appeared last. He was curious to see what scheme the Radiant Court was plotting, though he already had some idea. "Didn't they say that once everyone was here, the seal could be opened?" Someone called out. "Since we're all gathered, shouldn't we compete for the ancestral flame now?" "Not everyone's here yet," another person answered. "Who's missing?" "Of the 6 great god realms, 4 are here. The Hellfire God Realm and the Undying Fire God Realm still haven't arrived." "There's no need to wait for the Undying Fire God Realm," Suzimo said casually. "They're already corpses." A chill rippled through the crowd. The first fire domain had been annihilated by him. "The Hell Tiger race is coming," someone shouted. Everyone looked to the sky. A massive tiger leapt across the void, soaring toward them. On its back stood 3 tiger-like youths. Their eyes gleamed fiercely. Short whiskers bristled from their cheeks, and the character Wang King was marked on each of their foreheads. It was unmistakable they were from the Hell Tiger race. "Sorry to keep everyone waiting," one of them said with a grin. Though the 3 were not particularly famous, the leader among them was the clan's young master, Tiger Overlord. The other 2, Tiger 1 and Tiger 2, were virtually unknown before this. No one could understand why the Hellfire God Realm had sent such obscure representatives to the ancestral lands. With the Hell Tiger race's arrival, nearly everyone destined for the ancestral lands had gathered. All eyes turned to Suzimo, but he only chuckled. "Don't look at me. Since the Radiant Court is here, let them take charge." "Everyone, listen to me," Morong Qing said, stepping forward. "Before we attack the ancestral lands, let's call out the Fire Keepers. If they're willing to yield peacefully, they need not be harmed." Many nodded in agreement. To the Fire God races, the Fire Keepers held a special significance. Were it not for the Radiant Court's control over the ancestral lands, forcing them apart, no one would dare harm the Keepers so recklessly. "Fire Keepers, where are you?" someone shouted. At once, the sky shimmered, and a cloud of crimson flame drifted into view. A portal opened in the void, and an old man with snow-white hair stepped through. "Everyone," the old man sighed. "The Fire Keepers have guarded the ancestral flame for countless years. If nothing else, we have earned some measure of merit for it." "As long as you open the ancestral lands," Morong Qing replied, "we promise no Fire Keeper will be harmed." "Is that the Radiant Court's official stance?" the old man asked, ignoring the others and fixing his gaze on her. Morong Qing hesitated briefly, then nodded. She knew perfectly well that the Radiant Court's stance was very different from that of the Fire God races. "You Radiant Court people are clever schemers," the old man said bitterly. "Make your choice," Morong Qing said calmly. "The Fire Keeper lineage has never bred cowards," the old man said, shaking his head. "If we die with honor. Better that than living in shame." "In that case," Morong Qing sighed, "there's nothing left to discuss. The ancestral flame within the ancestral lands is free for anyone to claim. Life and death are their own affair." With that, she stepped back, clearly unwilling to interfere further. The Radiant Court's true objective had never been the ancestral flame anyway. Her declaration unleashed the chaos. The independent cultivators who had been holding back for so long finally roared and surged forward, charging toward the ancestral lands. Powerful auras shook the heavens. Though the ancestral lands' defenses were formidable, difficult for any one person to breach, the combined might of so many was overwhelming. Explosions echoed through the sky, shaking the world. Within moments, the defensive barrier shattered under their assault. From within, countless fire keepers poured out to fight. The fire keepers were numerous, but their strength was comparatively weak. Even the weakest among the assembled cultivators were emperors. Most stood at the very peak of that realm. Under such overwhelming force, the fire keepers could not hold out for long. In truth, their courage was worthy of respect. Even when fate was sealed and death was certain, they fought without hesitation, willing to die to fulfill their duty of guarding the flame. It was tragic, yes, but in this world, strength ruled all. The Radiant Court did not take part in the battle. Neither did Su Zimo's Chaos Fire God realm. The Radiant Court had its own schemes, while Su Zimo simply had no interest in the ancestral flame. He was there to watch, to see who the Night Sovereign had referred to as the traitor, and to find out what the Radiant Court's real plan was. As the chaotic fighting went on, the situation gradually became clear. The attackers had gained the upper hand. The ancestral lands of the Thunder Domain lived up to its name. It lay within a deep thunder valley. From above, it appeared as a vast oval gorge, its depths impossible to measure. On all sides, the canyon walls crackled with endless lightning, wild and violent. The lightning did not strike without reason, unless one happened to fall into it. The fire keepers were being pushed back, retreating deeper into the valley. "Charge! Seize the ancestral flame!" someone shouted. The crowd's excitement reached a fever pitch. Countless cultivators surged forward recklessly, rushing deeper into the Thunder Valley. At some point, Murong Qing appeared before Su Zimo again, smiling faintly. "Lord Su, are you truly not interested in the ancestral flame?" "I'm human," Su Zimo said with a smile. "It makes sense that I wouldn't be interested in something tied to the fire god race. What's more interesting is how the Radiant Court remains unmoved. That's worth thinking about." "If Lord Su is willing to join us," Murong Qing said, "I can tell you everything. At this point, there's no need to hide it." "There's no need for that," Su Zimo replied, waving his hand. "I don't plan to meddle in the fire god race's affairs." "In that case," Murong Qing said calmly, "keep watching. Everything will soon come to light." As the crowd charged into the valley, the scenery changed. The lightning here seemed alive, attacking any intruder on sight. But these were no ordinary people. Their power was immense. The lightning caused trouble, yes, but it couldn't drive them back. The fire keepers retreated all the way to the deepest part of the valley. There was nowhere left to go. One by one, they fell until only a single fire keeper remained, an elder of Saint Level, his body broken and bloodied. "There was no need for this," someone said with a sigh. "We only seek the ancestral flame, not the extinction of your clan." But others were impatient. One figure leapt into the air and flew straight toward the last firekeeper. "Hand over the ancestral flame," he shouted, "or we'll make you suffer a fate worse than death." The old saint only laughed, hoarse, defiant laughter filled with blood. "We failed to protect the ancestral flame," he said. "But even in death, we'll make you pay dearly." With that, he crushed a token he had been holding unseen in his hand. Instantly, the vast Thunder Valley came alive with power. An ancient formation, laid down countless ages ago, began to awaken. As the formation activated, the entire valley trembled. The lightning along the cliffs surged into a frenzy. Before, the bolts had been bound to the walls, but now, they burst free, filling the valley completely. The sky darkened under a sudden storm of clouds. Silver-white lightning dragons coiled through the darkness, roaring as they darted between the thunderheads. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck down from the heavens with a deafening crash. Boom! A grand emperor was obliterated on the spot, reduced to dust. The crowd froze in shock. "Don't panic," someone shouted. It's just a formation. Destroy the formation, and the ancestral flame will reveal itself. Indeed, greed often overpowered fear. Among the crowd were cultivators in formations. Someone turned toward a young man and called, "Isn't the Formation Dao Emperor, Sun Shaotian, here?" All eyes fell on him, a youth dressed in imperial robes, heir to the divine formation Dao court. He was born with the myriad formations God-King physique, a natural prodigy who could form formations at a glance. Sun Shaotian smiled faintly. "No need to rush," he said. "Let me examine it." With a wave of his hand, a circular formation disc appeared before him, lightning crackling across its surface. This was one of his sect's greatest treasures, a formation plate that could both create and dismantle formations. He rotated the disc slowly. Bolts of lightning rippled across its surface, then split into 7 distinct rays that shot toward different directions. "These," Sun Shaotian said, "are the formation's 7 cores. Destroy them all at once, and the formation will collapse. But if even one remains intact, it will recover itself instantly." The crowd nodded. Tiger Overlord of the Hell Tiger race stepped forward and roared, "We'll take the first core. Then the second one's ours," shouted a cultivator from the Infinite Volcano Dao court. Soon all 7 cores were assigned. Ignoring the storm of lightning, everyone charged toward their designated targets. Explosions thundered through the valley. The battle was fierce, and the toll heavy, but the good news was that they reached the cores. Tiger Overlord raised his voice. "On my count of 3, strike together. Destroy the formation." Everyone responded with a shout. 1, 2, 3. A deafening explosion tore through the valley. Countless attacks merged into a single tidal wave of destruction. The entire canyon shook violently, like the heavens themselves were thundering. Cracks split the ground, boulders crashed down the slopes, and parts of the cliffside collapsed in roaring landslides. The lightning formation, its 7 cores shattered, began to unravel. The rampant lightning slowly dispersed, fading into the air. When the smoke cleared, the crowd rushed forward to where the last firekeeper, the one who had activated the formation, had fallen. He was already dead. Behind his body lay a vast sea of lightning, a boundless ocean formed entirely from living thunder. "The ancestral flame must be in there," someone said confidently. "But how are we supposed to enter something like that?" another asked, frowning. "Let me try," said a lone cultivator, stepping forward. His body radiated immense power as he struck at the lightning sea again and again. But his attacks vanished without a trace, like stones sinking into the ocean, leaving no ripple behind. The sea of lightning seemed as though it could devour everything. But by this point, some people were beginning to feel uneasy. Whoever obtained the ancestral flame would inevitably become the enemy of all others. Everyone harbored their own hidden motives. Eventually, it was Tiger Overlord of the Hell Tiger race who proposed, "I think we should first break through this sea of lightning. Don't you agree? And what if your Hell Tiger race takes the ancestral flame after we break the lightning sea?" someone questioned. "We should come up with a fair method." "There's no such thing as fairness in this world," another person sneered. "If you all don't dare to move forward, then we of the Thunder Dragon race will not hold back." A dragon's roar echoed through the valley. A moment later, a figure emerged, humanoid, yet clearly draconic. He was of human size, but his entire body was covered in shimmering dragon scales, and a long tail extended behind him. His entire form pulsed with raging lightning. The Thunder Dragons were not of the Fire God race. Strictly speaking, they were a subdragon race, but they were born attuned to thunder and lightning. They never feared thunder. In fact, being struck by it was part of their cultivation. Now, this Thunder Dragon could no longer restrain himself. The ancestral flame was right before him, surrounded by lightning, his very element. How could he possibly resist? "It's Zhenlazi!" someone shouted upon recognizing him. Zhenlazi dove directly into the sea of lightning. Though the thunder was world-shattering, his dragon scales deflected it all. He moved like a true thunder dragon, swimming proudly through the storm. "I see it!" Zhenlazi exclaimed in excitement. At the center of the lightning sea, a glowing sphere of thunderfire floated in the depths, blazing with radiant energy. "He's getting there first. Don't let him take it," someone roared. Those who had been waiting for the right moment could hold back no longer. The first to move were the swordsmen of Sword Mountain. Their flying swords streaked through the sky, slicing open half the heavens. Their sword chi was sharp and unyielding. Surrounding themselves with blades, they plunged into the lightning sea. Their sword aura so dominant it actually forced the thunder back, carving open a path. Tiger Overlord of the Hell Tiger race charged next, his body gathering immense spirit energy that formed into a colossal tiger phantom. The tiger's roar shook the heavens as it leapt into the lightning sea, untouched by the raging bolts around it. "Kill!" Countless voices cried. Everyone unleashed their strongest powers, diving into the lightning sea to seize the ancestral flame. Explosions rocked the void. Despicable sword-sect dogs. "You dare to ambush me? We are opponents. How is that despicable? Brother Chang, we just fought side by side to break the formation. Why must we become enemies now? If you withdraw from this fight for the ancestral flame, I swear I won't harm you." A single ancestral flame had turned allies into enemies, throwing everyone into chaos. Zhenlazi was the first to reach the ancestral flame. He grabbed the glowing sphere that enveloped it, laughing wildly. "I've got it! The ancestral flame is mine." But his laughter had barely echoed before countless attacks rained down on him. He had no time to revel in his victory. In the blink of an eye, Zhenlazi's body was obliterated, erased by overwhelming power. Even with his legendary dragon-scale defense, he couldn't withstand the combined assault. Outside the valley, Murong Qing narrowed her eyes, watching the scene unfold. Su Zimo asked calmly, "When are you going to act?" "Very soon," Murong Qing replied. "The ancestral flame has shifted position. That means the destruction of the Thunder Domain is about to begin. Not just us, others won't be able to resist taking action either." Indeed, the moment Zhenlazi touched the ancestral flame, the Thunder Domain began to unravel, just like the previous domains. Starting from the outermost edge, everything began to collapse. Beside her, Realm Lord Bai suddenly realized something. Her face turned pale as she asked, "If the Thunder Domain is destroyed, what will happen to us? Won't we all be buried with the ancestral lands?" "Exactly. When the ancestral lands are completely destroyed, everything within will be buried," Murong Qing said with a faint smile. "If you want to leave alive, you'll have to hand over the ancestral flame." Realm Lord Bai froze in shock. Now she understood the Radiant Court's plan. The Radiant Court controlled both entry to and exit from the ancestral lands. They didn't need to fight for the ancestral flame at all because in the end, everyone would be forced to surrender it. Otherwise, they'd all perish within the collapsing world. More than that, if the Radiant Court directly destroyed the ancestral lands and killed all the Firekeepers themselves, their reputation among the Fire God race would be utterly ruined. But by opening the ancestral lands to all forces and letting them fight over the ancestral flame, they had spread the blame evenly. When destruction came, no one could hold the Radiant Court accountable. Realizing this, Realm Lord Bai shivered. The Radiant Court's scheming was terrifying. Murong Qing smiled again and said softly, "Don't panic, my dear. As long as your young master Su doesn't oppose us, you can leave safely." Meanwhile, within the Lightning Sea, after a brutal slaughter, half of those who entered were already dead, their corpses swallowed by thunder. The survivors were still fighting desperately, unwilling to give up. But then, someone sensed something, a deep, rumbling change in the world. "Do you hear that? What's that sound?" Someone shouted. Several cultivators flew upward, gazing toward the distant horizon. There, dust rose high into the air. The earth cracked apart. The sky itself was fracturing. For those who had witnessed other domains collapse, the sight was unmistakable. "The Thunder Domain is collapsing. Run for your lives." "Run? Run where?" "The Radiant Court. They brought us in. Maybe they can take us out. Yes. Let's go to the Radiant Court. They must have a way. The once frenzied crowd fighting for the ancestral flame suddenly came to their senses and turned toward Murong Qing. Murong Qing knew it was her cue to act. She smiled and called out, "Everyone, don't panic. The Radiant Court will send you out safely." I knew it. The Radiant Court is the pride of the Inferno Crucible Heaven. Our leaders would never betray us. Someone exclaimed in relief. Murong Qing's smile deepened. There's just one matter that must be resolved before anyone can leave. What matter? Someone demanded anxiously. The Radiant Court graciously opened the ancestral lands, so you all could seek your fortunes, Murong Qing said. But instead, you plundered the ancestral flame and brought ruin to this sacred place. How can we explain that? She sighed softly. So we must ask everyone to hand over the ancestral flames. Only then can we ensure your safe departure. Are you kidding me? Someone shouted angrily. We risked our lives for those. You Radiant Court people are shameless. You just want to reap where you didn't sow. Murong Qing kept smiling. We won't force anyone, she said. But if you choose not to comply, then the Radiant Court will be unable to send you out. You're threatening us, someone shouted angrily at Murong Qing. Everyone, join forces. Let's make the Radiant Court open the ancestral lands and let us out. Murong Qing narrowed her eyes slightly and asked calmly, I see. Are you declaring war on the Radiant Court? The man fell silent immediately. Declaring war on the Radiant Court was a consequence he couldn't bear. Everyone knew that the Radiant Court was truly powerful, the strongest among the 6 great god realms. In fact, in the hearts of many within the Fire God race, the Radiant Court was regarded as their rightful leader. Can't we take a step back and compromise? Du Heng of the Vermilion Flame God realm stepped forward to mediate. Since Du Bujia's death at Li Guan's hands, Du Heng had become the one in charge of their expedition. His reputation wasn't particularly famous, but his strength was solid. More importantly, he was steady and reasonable, the kind of man others could rally behind. Murong Qing shook her head. We've already compromised. You can take anything else from the ancestral lands, ancient relics, opportunities, treasures, whatever you want. But the ancestral flame must remain. That's our bottom line. It's not negotiable. Her words silenced everyone. Decide quickly, Murong Qing added. The Thunder Domain is about to collapse. You don't have much time left. Someone sighed. Our Shangguan Heavenly Clan will hand over the ancestral flame. No one expected the first to yield would be the Shangguan Heavenly Clan from the Divine Crow God realm. It shocked everyone. Shangguan Wan'er didn't hesitate for even a moment. Their family had obtained the ancestral flame of the Metal Domain. The fire had been sealed within an ancient sword, forged to contain its power. The sword had long since developed a spirit of its own. As Shangguan Wan'er drew the sword, it trembled violently, struggling against her grasp as if refusing to be given up. Without a word, she threw the golden sword toward Murong Qing. The sword sliced through the shattered void, trailing fierce golden energy and searing flames before Murong Qing caught it in one hand. Good, Murong Qing said with a smile. Those from the Divine Crow God realm may leave. I, Tiger Overlord of the Hell Tiger race, will also hand over our ancestral flame, Tiger Overlord declared next. Their race had obtained the ancestral flame of the Earth Domain. Seems our Vermilion Flame God realm has no choice but to follow, Du Heng said helplessly. Their domain had gained the wood ancestral flame. Meanwhile, within the Lightning Valley, countless people were still fighting over the Thunder Domain's ancestral flame. But once they realized what was happening, that ancestral flame suddenly became like a scorching hot coal. No one dared to touch it anymore. Murong Qing waved her hand, and the ancestral flame floated obediently from the lightning sea into her palm, while everyone else could only watch. Now the ancestral flames of the metal, earth, wood, and thunder domains were all in her hands. Only the fire and water sources remained unaccounted for. The water source was in Su Zimo's possession, while rumor had it that a rogue cultivator had taken the ancestral flame. that man was likely still clinging to hope, unwilling to surrender it. Whoever hasn't handed over their ancestral flame yet, please cooperate, Morong Ching said. Otherwise, none of you will leave the ancestral lands alive. The rumbling of the collapsing world grew louder. The sound was drawing closer. Whoever still has it, hurry up. Do you want us all to die here with you? Murmurs and accusations began to rise among the crowd. Some even suggested searching everyone by force. Finally, the rogue cultivator couldn't stand the pressure any longer. He stepped out cautiously and said, I took the ancestral flame of the fire domain. What about the water source? Hurry and bring it out! Someone yelled impatiently. The destruction of the thunder domain was now visible in the distance. The last ancestral flame is with me. Su Zimo's voice cut through the air, drawing every gaze toward him. But I don't intend to hand it over. The Chaos Fire God realm, someone muttered, remembering Su Zimo's ruthlessness. The man who had once slain Yuan Onkong of the Dark Crow Dao Court with a single strike. The words that had been on their lips vanished instantly. Master Su, someone said carefully, even if you don't care about the rest of us, surely you plan to leave the ancestral lands alive yourself? Don't worry, Su Zimo said with a faint smile. Even if this place collapses, I'll be fine. The Radiant Court's tricks don't work on me. Everyone turned their eyes back to Morong Ching. She shrugged and said, without all the ancestral flames gathered, the ancestral lands can't be opened. So you're trying to make everyone pressure me? Su Zimo smiled coldly. Young Master Su, I have no wish to be your enemy, Morong Ching replied lightly. So naturally, I won't be the one to play the villain here. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. The crowd around him was growing restless, voices rising with anger and fear. At that moment, Shangguan Wan'er stepped forward. Everyone, she said, perhaps we should come to a unified decision. How? Someone asked. If someone refuses to consider everyone's survival, then there's no need for courtesy, she said firmly. If the Chaos Fire God realm insists on being stubborn, we should join forces and take the ancestral flame by force. Her proposal won instant approval from many. Chaos Fire God realm, hand over the ancestral flame, someone shouted. Otherwise, don't blame us for what happens next. Su Zimo chuckled coldly. He stepped forward slowly, holding the water ancestral flame in his hand. I'm standing right here, he said calmly. One of you or all of you, it doesn't matter. I'd like to see who among you can take this ancestral flame from me. His defiance stunned everyone. No one had expected Su Zimo to be so fearless. For a moment, no one dared move. Then, a streak of sword light flashed through the air, faster than lightning. In the next instant, a sword tip appeared behind Su Zimo's back. There was a deafening boom, but Su Zimo moved even faster. He reached back, caught the sword with one hand, and yanked its wielder forward as if dragging a child. An explosion followed. With a single step, Su Zimo stomped his attacker to the ground. The man's limbs were shattered instantly, reduced to a limp heap of flesh unable to move. It's Xuelang from Sword Mountain, someone gasped. One strike, and he's done for? Let us, the three heroes of Hollow Mountain, try. Three identical men stepped out of the crowd. They clasped their fists and said respectfully, Fellow cultivator, forgive our offense, but we must leave this place alive. The crowd murmured in excitement. The three heroes of Hollow Mountain, the same trio who once fought the flame demon to a draw using the world-destroying millstone? It must be them. Who else would dare bear that title? The flame demon was a saint sovereign. The three heroes of Hollow Mountain, however, were only at the peak of the Grand Emperor realm. By all logic, there should have been a vast gap between them. Yet the three heroes of Hollow Mountain were so powerful that they had fought that saint to a draw. Their strength all came from the technique they cultivated, the world-destroying millstone. This art required three people to cultivate it together. Moreover, their hearts and minds had to be perfectly synchronized. Even the slightest deviation would lead to instant death for all three. It was precisely this harsh condition that made the technique nearly impossible to master. For tens of thousands of years, almost no one had succeeded, which was why their fame had spread so widely. At this moment, the three heroes of Hollow Mountain stepped forward. They looked exactly alike, three identical faces. Behind them, three massive gears like rotating millstones slowly turned in the air. The three millstones were identical in shape, differing only in color. The first was a golden Buddha millstone. It radiated Buddhist light, as if it embodied the compassion of a savior Buddha, merciful and benevolent, intent on delivering all beings. The second was a black demon millstone. This one was its polar opposite, the millstone of destruction. Within it churned endless seas of suffering, resentful souls, starving ghosts, and the torments of hell. It sought at every moment to drag everything into reincarnation and ruin. The third, the God Millstone, glowed with a faint blue light. It exuded divinity, proud, aloof, untouched by the mortal world, cold and pure in its sacred arrogance. As the three millstones slowly rotated, the entire void trembled. Their control over power had reached a microscopic, almost perfect level mastery so refined it obeyed their every thought. The three raised their palms. One of them spoke. "Fellow Taoist, we have no more time to waste on you. Allow us to show you our world-destroying strike." They extended their 6 hands, joining them together in a circle. Within that circle, the powers of God, Buddha, and demon began to fuse. The millstones behind them merged as well, their energies interlocking into one. Under that overwhelming force, the figures of the three slowly vanished. In their place appeared a single, colossal, world-destroying millstone. The heavens quaked beneath its weight. Its sheer power made even the onlookers flinch and retreat instinctively, afraid they would be pulled in and crushed to dust. The millstone began to spin, faster and faster, nearly reaching the speed of light. Heaven and earth fell silent beneath its might. Su Zimo watched calmly. "I've heard," he said lightly, "that there exists a millstone in this world, one that determines life and death for all beings. But that one is said to be in heaven's hands." He smiled faintly. "I wonder how much strength your imitation really has." His words seemed to provoke the millstone itself. It roared forward, spinning furiously as it charged toward him. Su Zimo didn't move. He didn't even raise a hand. "Is he frozen in fear?" someone muttered. "I thought he was supposed to be powerful. Looks like he's not so great after all." Ha, the three heroes of Hollow Mountain got lucky. If we'd gone first, this fame would be ours once we escape the ancestral lands. The crowd buzzed with excitement. The world-destroying millstone spun closer, faster, and in the blink of an eye, it was right before Su Zimo. He felt the energy briefly, then shook his head. "A pity," he said. "If you were Saint Sovereigns, this might be interesting. But 3 grand emperors trying to wield the power of destruction. There's an unbridgeable gulf between Grand Emperor and Saint Sovereign. Too weak." As his words fell, Su Zimo drew the blade on his back. Shadow Tyrant. The blade's aura surged, filled with thunder laws, empowered by the twin souls of life and death within him. He swung once. Lightning split the void apart. Thunder boomed and clouds swirled violently. The crowd saw that one tear opened the entire sky, dividing the heavens in two. A deafening explosion followed. The so-called world-destroying millstone was obliterated on impact, offering no resistance at all. When the storm of blade energy finally faded, Su Zimo glanced down. The bodies of the 3 heroes of Hollow Mountain were gone. Reduced to pulp, unrecognizable masses of flesh spread across the ground. "You might as well all come at once," Su Zimo said with a grin. "Fighting like this is getting boring." "He's insane, completely insane," someone whispered, swallowing hard. Under this kind of pressure, any ordinary person would have surrendered long ago. But Su Zimo only seemed more exhilarated. "The world is collapsing," Murong Qing said then, fanning the flames. "If the ancestral flames aren't gathered soon, there's nothing I can do. Everyone, may I have a word?" Su Zimo said suddenly, smiling. All eyes turned toward him. "You've all handed over your ancestral flames," he said. "So shouldn't the Radiant Court let you leave now?" "I haven't handed mine over. The Radiant Court could just leave me here. Why keep everyone trapped? Looks to me like they never planned to let any of you leave alive." His words hit like thunder. True or not, everyone's expressions changed at once. Perhaps he was stirring trouble, but even the slightest chance of truth was terrifying. Du Heng of the Vermilion Flame God realm shouted, "That's right. Murongqing, our domain already gave up our ancestral flame. You should at least let us go." Others joined in. "We're just rogue cultivators. We never had an ancestral flame to begin with. This has nothing to do with us. The Radiant Court must have other motives. Do you plan to rule the entire Inferno Crucible heaven?" People's hearts were fragile things, and in that moment, they all instinctively chose to believe Su Zimo. They couldn't afford to offend him, so they turned their anger toward the Radiant Court instead. "If we're going to die anyway," someone shouted, "then unless the Radiant Court gives us an answer today, we'll take you down with us." Several figures leapt into the air, surrounding Murongqing and the other two disciples of the Radiant Court to prevent their escape. Murongqing gave Su Zimo a cold smile. "Young Master Su, such a fine trick you've played." "Nothing but the truth," Su Zimo said with a shrug. Murongqing replied, "Hand over the ancestral flame, and we can negotiate any terms you want." "You're not qualified to negotiate with me," Su Zimo said flatly. "That's not arrogance, it's fact. What I want you can't give, and it's not your decision to make." "I can bring the Temple Master to speak with you," she offered. "The Light Lord Sage Monarch?" Su Zimo shook his head. "He's not enough either. I want to see Primordial Flame." "No," he corrected himself after a pause. "He should come see me." Murongqing sighed. "Young Master Su, I told you, the ancestor is in seclusion. No one can see him. It's always the ancestor who summons us. We have no way to summon him. So it seems young Master Su does not intend to hand over the ancestral flame," Murongqing said evenly. "To be honest," Su Zimo replied with a smile, "the ancestral flame isn't of much use to me. I have many other things on me that are far more valuable to your fire god race. But you're not qualified to negotiate with me." "Young Master Su, you know well," Murongqing said coldly, "that our Radiant Court will pay any price to obtain the ancestral flame. Even if that means becoming your enemy, we must have it." "I've already stated my terms," Su Zimo said with a light laugh. "If I don't meet Primordial Flame, I won't hand over the ancestral flame, even if it means standing against the Radiant Court." Murongqing's eyes narrowed slightly. All around them, the independent cultivators were growing restless. The collapse of the Thunder Domain was only moments away. Danger loomed ever closer. "Radiant Court bastards," Tiger Overlord roared. "Give us an answer. Will you open the ancestral lands or not? If we die here, your Radiant Court will be the target of every faction across the Inferno Crucible heaven. All 5 god realms included. To let you leave is not because we fear you," Murongqing snorted. "It's simply because you are not our goal this time." With that, she pressed her hands together and began to form seals. Her movements were impossibly fast. Within a few breaths, countless intricate runes filled the sky, each glowing with mysterious power. When those runes combined, they formed a single object, a key. A key that could open the ancestral lands and connect to the outside world. Vast, primordial energy rippled from it, carrying the aura of creation itself. The key shimmered in the void, and then the heavens split apart. The world tore open, revealing a massive, swirling vortex of devouring force. Meanwhile, the collapse of the Thunder Domain was now less than 3 kilometers away. Death was closing in fast. Through this vortex lies the outer world, the Inferno Crucible heaven, Murongqing announced. Everyone except young Master Su may leave. After saying that, her gaze returned to Su Zimo. "I am quite curious to see how you intend to escape this place of destruction, young Master Su." "Why would I need to leave?" Su Zimo replied with a smirk. The real show hasn't even begun. Why rush? Morong Qing frowned slightly. By now, countless rogue cultivators were rushing toward the vortex, desperate to flee. Some had lost everything despite their efforts to find an ancestral flame, while others who had aimed only for ancient ruins had come away richly rewarded. Just as more and more people began escaping, something unexpected happened. As the Hell Tiger race approached Morong Qing to leave, Tiger Overlord suddenly struck. A thunderous tiger's roar echoed through the sky, and terrifying power erupted from his body. Tiger Overlord attacked first. Explosions rocked the heavens. No one could have anticipated that Tiger Overlord would dare to attack someone from the Radiant Court. Morong Qing was caught completely off guard. A single punch sent her flying backward. "Hand over the ancestral flames, bitch!" Tiger Overlord roared. The ancestral flames were stored in Morong Qing's sleeve world, a pocket dimension she had personally refined, since a simple storage ring could not contain such power. Some powerful beings went to great lengths to create small, private worlds, not only to store treasures but even to house their families within. Though such worlds were lifeless and could not grow, they served their purpose well. Tiger Overlord had long been watching her sleeve world, waiting for his chance. His power surged, manifesting as a massive tiger phantom that devoured the heavens themselves. The phantom roared, and Morong Qing's sleeve world shattered under the assault. Countless treasures spilled out, but most noticeable were the 5 radiant ancestral flames. Morong Qing's expression changed drastically. "Put down the ancestral flames. What are you Hell Tigers trying to do? This concerns the Fire God race's fate. The ancestral flames cannot be taken. You Radiant Court people have been in our way for far too long." Tiger Overlord sneered. "The Fire God race needs change. With you sitting on top, nothing ever changes. It's time to remove you." Tiger Overlord and Morong Qing clashed violently in midair, each trying to seize the ancestral flames. In the struggle, Morong Qing managed to reclaim the fire, thunder, and wood ancestral flames. Tiger Overlord, meanwhile, snatched up the metal ancestral flame. Though both were Saint sovereign prodigies of their respective powers, the gap in strength between them was obvious. Under Morong Qing's fierce assault, Tiger Overlord could barely defend himself. After securing 4 ancestral flames, both turned their eyes toward the final one, the Earth ancestral flame. At the same time, they both launched themselves into the air, reaching for it. But before either could touch it, a massive hand appeared from nowhere and snatched the ancestral flame first. Both of their faces darkened, especially Morong Qing's. For the one who had taken it was none other than Shangguan Wanner. Surrounded by the burning 9 nether hellfire, Shangguan Wanner unleashed a devastating strike, sending both of them flying back. She had been hiding her true strength all along. In fact, ever since the earlier battle involving Su Zimo, she had never fought seriously. "Shangguan Wanner, what are you doing?" Morong Qing shouted furiously. "Is the Divine Crow God realm planning to betray us too? Your Radiant Court doesn't rule the Fire God race," Shangguan Wanner said coldly. "Just because we defy your will, that makes us traitors? What kind of bandit logic is that?" Morong Qing snapped. "That's not what I mean, and you know it," Morong Qing said through clenched teeth. "Are you working with the Hell Tigers?" No, Shangguan Wanner said, shaking her head with a faint smile. "I only care about myself. What happens to the rest of you has nothing to do with me." With that, she turned and smiled again. "You two can keep fighting. Settle your business however you like. I'll be taking my leave." She rose into the air, flying straight toward the vortex. Morong Qing didn't move to stop her. She only watched coldly. Then boom! As Shangguan Wanner touched the vortex, a massive force struck her down. "Who's there?" she shouted, but no answer came. The attack had come from a formation, an enormous formation spinning in the void, stirring clouds and wind. It enveloped the vortex completely, sealing every exit. From that moment on, no living being could leave the ancestral lands. "So, you were prepared for this all along," Shangguan Wanner said, glaring at Morong Qing. I only want to know one thing, Murong Qing said coldly. Are you and Tiger Overlord working together? No, Shangguan Wanner replied evenly. Let me go. Hand over the ancestral flame, Murong Qing said in an icy voice. Come with me to the Radiant Court and confess your crimes. I can spare your life once. Wishful thinking, Shangguan Wanner snorted. Then, turning to Tiger Overlord, she said, Hell Tiger, how about we join forces? Sure, Tiger Overlord said with a sinister grin. The era ruled by the Radiant Court should have ended long ago. Shangguan Wanner nodded slightly. Dark flames of the 9 nether hellfire began surging from her right hand. Massive waves of black fire rose behind her, forming into an endless sea of flame that blazed across the heavens. The sea of fire burned fiercely, and her entire figure seemed draped in a robe woven from shadowy flames. Beside her, Tiger Overlord of the Hell Tiger race did the same. The infernal fire around him condensed into a blazing fire cloak, the hood shaped like a tiger's head. The two of them, one on the left and one on the right, encircled Murong Qing. Tiger Overlord's eyes glimmered dangerously as he said coldly, Kill Murong Qing, and we'll split the ancestral flames evenly. I have no objection, Shangguan Wanner replied. Murong Qing's expression was grim. She turned toward Su Zimo. Young Master Su, shall we join forces? At that moment, only Su Zimo remained nearby. The others were either too weak or too unreliable, and with the ancestral flames at stake, no one could truly be trusted. Heh, and why would I join forces with you? Su Zimo said with a smile and a shake of his head. Weren't you treating me as an enemy just a moment ago? Besides, when the Night Sovereign tried to recruit me, I remember you already had your own allies, didn't you? Young Master Su, have you forgotten that the entire Undying Fire God realm was annihilated by your hand? Murong Qing said bitterly. The Undying Fire God realm had once been their ally. Before this, the Radiant Court hadn't been sure whether the other God realms were friend or foe, so they'd chosen their alliances carefully. Convincing the Undying Fire God realm had been no small task, only for Su Zimo to wipe them out completely. How could the Radiant Court have foreseen that? That has nothing to do with me, Su Zimo shrugged. They were the ones who provoked me first. Besides, alliances are just temporary conveniences. I'm sure the Radiant Court still has some tricks prepared, don't you? If the Radiant Court had truly relied on those useless fools from the Undying Fire God realm as their trump card, that would have been laughable. In truth, only one's own power could be trusted. Does young Master Su really intend to just stand there and watch? Murong Qing said sharply. If you get caught in the crossfire, don't blame us. If you're capable of hurting me, that's your skill, Su Zimo replied lightly. Stop talking nonsense, Tiger Overlord growled, and charged straight at Murong Qing. His fists blazed with fierce fire. Explosions echoed through the air as his punches rained down in rapid succession, so fast that only streaks of flame could be seen. But Murong Qing was no pushover. The flames of the sun surrounded her, and her palms shone like twin suns, turning into 2 streaks of golden light. No matter how strong Tiger Overlord's attacks were, her radiant palms deflected every blow, dispersing their power harmlessly. Help me out, Tiger Overlord shouted impatiently toward Shangguan Wanner. Shangguan Wanner only smiled faintly. In an instant, she tore open the void and disappeared into it, moving so fast her form could no longer be seen, only the drifting trails of her 9 nether hellfire, like ghostly lights across the underworld. She waited in silence, like an experienced hunter stalking her prey, watching carefully for Murong Qing's opening. Suddenly, she struck. Her figure flashed like a streak of light, appearing beside Murong Qing without warning. Her palm fell, twisting the air itself as countless strands of power burst outward. Boom! The blow landed squarely, and Murong Qing was sent flying backward. She steadied herself, wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, and fixed her sharp gaze on Shangguan Wanner. Saintess Murong, Shangguan Wanner said with a smile, open the ancestral lands. Once I leave, you'll have no trouble defeating him. I have no interest in your struggle. I just want one ancestral flame. You think too much, Morong Qing snorted. She waved her right hand. It looked like a simple motion, yet the heavens trembled. The clouds above twisted and churned, the winds howling as the entire sky seemed to respond to her gesture. The vortex that had appeared earlier was part of a grand formation, one that contained immense power. Morong Qing's hand fell, and a deafening roar followed as a torrent of light poured from the formation above. The flood of energy tracked its target relentlessly, giving Shangguan Wanner no room to dodge. She had no choice but to meet it head-on. Another thunderous boom shook the heavens. The void shattered, and Shangguan Wanner was knocked down from the air. "What incredible power," said Bai Zhongzhu, watching from below in awe. "Did she win?" "Not yet," Su Zimo said with a smile. "Far from it. What should we do?" "The Thunder Domain is about to collapse," Bai Zhongzhu asked anxiously. "Don't worry," Su Zimo replied calmly. "Even if the Thunder Domain is destroyed, we'll be fine. This entire world has already been sealed. True destruction is impossible." What Morong Qing called destruction was just a lie to trick everyone into handing over their ancestral flames. "Ah, so that's it," Bai Zhongzhu said, startled. Just as Su Zimo had said, the Thunder Domain finally collapsed completely. The land beneath them, the heart of the Thunder Domain, where the ancestral flame had been guarded, shattered to pieces. The world disintegrated from the edges inward, with their location at the center. When the destruction reached its end, the scene that unfolded was surreal. A deafening explosion erupted, louder than any before. The entire Thunder Domain crumbled into dust and vanished. The ground underfoot disappeared as well. Yet strangely, everyone could still stand in midair, as if some unseen gravitational force held them up within the endless void. Beneath their feet yawned a bottomless abyss. They stood suspended in emptiness, surrounded by nothing. No ground, no horizon, only darkness. "You lied to us?" Tiger Overlord snarled, his face dark. "So what if I did?" Morong Qing sneered. "Even without the deception, you'd never escape the ancestral lands." "How can you be so sure?" Tiger Overlord retorted coldly. "Perhaps you should worry about your own safety first," Morong Qing said calmly. She said nothing more, focusing instead on the formation above. With the formation's aid, she seemed unstoppable, almost divine. The formation's power was immense, not only sealing the entire ancestral lands but also forcing both Shangguan Wanner and Tiger Overlord into desperate straits. Countless torrents of energy fell from the heavens like a divine flood. "Today, both of you will perish here," Morong Qing said coldly. "And those behind you will share the same fate." As if to affirm her words, far away in the outer canyon, the surviving cultivators who had barely escaped from the ancestral lands stood trembling, still pale with fear. They had narrowly avoided being buried along with the collapsing realm. "What happened?" shouted one of the elders from a great sect, demanding answers from his disciples. Before anyone could reply, the entire canyon suddenly erupted in dazzling light. "What's going on?" Someone sensed the disturbance in the valley and shouted in alarm. "It's a formation," another cultivator immediately realized. "A formation? Who could have set up a formation right under our noses?" Someone frowned and asked. Everyone present was among the most powerful beings of the Inferno Crucible heaven. At this moment, the valley trembled. Countless fragments of space burst into the air, ripples spreading through the void. A storm of yellow sand rose skyward, engulfing the entire valley. "Go!" One of the cultivators, sensing something was wrong, shouted the command and tried to retreat with his disciples. But the moment they leapt into the air, a tremendous pressure descended. As that oppressive power fell, everyone felt their bodies grow heavy. "Spatial restriction," someone muttered. Under that pressure, it didn't matter if you were an unmatched prodigy or an ancient patriarch of a great sect. Even in existence like the Chaos Fire Progenitor, no one could do anything. Everyone was grounded. Even though there were countless saint sovereigns among them, not a single one could take to the sky. To suppress Saint Sovereigns, only one level of power could do that. An infinite Tao realm cultivator, someone whispered. Has the one from the Radiant Court emerged? Some were uncertain, even shocked. That figure from the Radiant Court hadn't appeared for many years. Many had never seen them in their entire lives. What could have happened to make them appear now? In truth, everyone knew that the opening of the ancestral lands wasn't as simple as it seemed. But the deeper details were beyond their reach. They could only take things one step at a time. At this moment, some disciples who had escaped from the ancestral lands briefly recounted what had happened. What? The ancestral lands was destroyed? The elders were shocked. The destruction of the ancestral lands was one thing, but where had all the ancestral flames gone? When they heard that the Radiant Court had reclaimed them, the elders felt both regret and helplessness. In matters like this, they could only admit their misfortune. It was impossible to confront the Radiant Court about it. Doing so might get them killed outright. Ancestral flames were not something anyone outside the 6 great god realms could dare to meddle with. Treasures of heaven and earth belonged only to the strong. The activation of the formation caused a brief panic. Its power grew stronger by the second. The surging yellow sand seemed intent on burying everything in its path. Even many Saint Sovereigns wore solemn expressions. The formation felt dangerous even to them. Everyone, do not panic. At that moment, the voice of the Light Lord Sage Monarch of the Radiant Court echoed through the air. His calm tone instantly shattered the atmosphere of fear. This formation was arranged by our Radiant Court, but it is not aimed at any of you. It concerns a major matter within our fire god race. The Light Lord Sage Monarch said with a smile as he walked through the air. The oppressive power continued to suppress everyone, preventing them from flying. Yet the Light Lord Sage Monarch himself remained unaffected, a clear sign of who controlled this domain. What does the Sage Monarch mean by this? One cultivator stood up and asked. The opening of the ancestral lands was the Radiant Court's decision. We came here following the Radiant Court's rules. Now that the ancestral lands is destroyed, does the Radiant Court intend to hold us accountable? There's no need for alarm. That's not my intention. The Light Lord Sage Monarch replied with a smile. Today, I'm here to reveal an important secret concerning our fire god race. What is it? Everyone asked, puzzled. In truth, from the very birth of our fire god race, there has been a defect within our bodies. This flaw may go unnoticed in the early and middle stages, but once we reach higher realms, if it is not resolved, no member of the fire god race will ever advance further. The Light Lord Sage Monarch's voice was calm yet carried weight. This is not an exaggeration. I believe some among you have already heard whispers of this matter. There's such a thing? Faces turned pale with shock. This wasn't a problem affecting just one person, it concerned the entire fire god race. Their collective fate was suddenly at stake. What evidence does the Radiant Court have for this claim? Someone asked. What need is there for evidence? The Light Lord Sage Monarch replied. Our Radiant Court has no reason to deceive you. For countless years, we have been searching for a way to mend this flaw. Did you find it? Someone asked eagerly. You should all know about the water beasts, the Light Lord Sage Monarch said with a faint smile. Of course. Everyone nodded quickly. To the fire god race, the water beasts were hated enemies. They had destroyed the Departure Fire region. No one knew whether their own domain might be next. We once slew a group of water beasts and obtained a sunflower. That sunflower was left behind by one of our forebears. According to our research, it likely holds the power to change the nature of our fire god race and mend our defect. The Light Lord Sage Monarch explained clearly. Everyone was stunned. None of them had expected that the Radiant Court had been secretly preparing for this all along. What are you getting at, Sage Monarch? Someone demanded. You lured us into the ancestral lands. What was the real purpose? Exactly. If your Radiant Court is so capable, why not just fix the flaw yourselves? Please listen to me, the Light Lord Sage Monarch said with a patient smile. We paid a great price to reach this stage. The only thing we still require is ancestral flame energy. Only with all 6 ancestral flames can we proceed. But the ancestral flames lie within the ancestral lands, and the Fire Keepers would never hand them over. Since the ancestral lands is the birthplace of all fire god race beings, not just the Radiant Court, we decided to open it up so that everyone would have a chance to enter. So that's it, huh? You just wanted us to do your dirty work, then threaten us to hand over the ancestral flames before leaving. Someone scoffed. Everyone here was shrewd. None would be fooled by a few pretty words from the Radiant Court. Please don't be hasty. Hear me out. The Light Lord Sage Monarch continued smoothly. Our plan was indeed related to this. The ancestral flames, whatever they may be, are an internal matter of our race. However, some people, some among us, attempted to betray our fire god race. They sought to hand the ancestral flames to the heavenly court in exchange for authority over the Inferno Crucible heaven. What? The crowd erupted in shock. This was no longer a minor issue. This was betrayal, treason against their very race, something more despicable than any crime. Who are they? Someone demanded. In the crowd, certain individuals' eyes flickered with unease, and they subtly stepped back. These people, the Light Lord Sage Monarch said with a smile. I want them to step forward on their own. Let everyone see who they are, the traitors who sold out our fire god race. When the Light Lord Sage Monarch spoke, the entire valley erupted into chaos. Yet no one was willing to step forward. Everyone was guessing who the traitors might be. Members of the Hell Tiger race? Is there still any point in hiding? As soon as the Light Lord Sage Monarch's words fell, the valley fell silent. Then, everyone nearby quickly distanced themselves from the Hell Tiger race's people as if avoiding a plague, afraid of being tainted by association. Since you dared to do it, why hide now? What's the matter? Have you all turned into turtles? The Hell Tiger race's patriarch, Celestial Tiger Sovereign, stood calmly in place, unfazed by the shifting reactions around him. He asked coldly, Sage Monarch, do you have any proof of your accusation? Or are you simply jealous that our Hell Tiger race has grown too fast and threatens the Radiant Court's position, so you resort to intimidation? Celestial Tiger Sovereign, if I dared to say it, I'm naturally not afraid of your questioning or denial. The Light Lord Sage Monarch said with a faint smile. He clapped his hands. The heavens trembled. Countless streams of spirit energy gathered together, and an image appeared in the sky. A memory stone recording. Seeing it, several people's expressions changed slightly. A memory stone was a special crystal capable of recording events from the past, preserving both image and sound. The scene in the sky began to shift. 2 figures appeared on the cliff of a mountain peak. The one standing in front wore celestial robes, radiating thick immortal energy, surrounded by countless blooming lotus flowers that emanated divine aura. Behind him stood another figure, dressed in a tiger-patterned robe, exuding a fierce presence. On his forehead, the word King was clearly visible. It was none other than Celestial Tiger Sovereign. Although the conversation between the two couldn't be heard, some mysterious force shrouded them, preventing the memory stone from capturing their voices. The sight of the two standing together was already enough to tell a story. Celestial Tiger Sovereign, do you have anything to say? The Light Lord Sage Monarch asked. If you still wish to argue, that's fine. As long as your Hell Tiger race refrains from competing for the ancestral flame, I'll apologize to you personally. At that, Celestial Tiger Sovereign let out a heavy snort. His voice echoed through the empty valley as he shouted coldly, What I despise most about your Radiant Court is your arrogance. Why shouldn't my Hell Tiger race compete? Are the rest of us in the 5 god realms destined to be inferior to your Radiant Court? There has never been superiority or inferiority, the Light Lord Sage Monarch replied sharply. Our Radiant Court has worked tirelessly for countless years to obtain the ancestral flame and repair our flaws. The reverence we command is the result of our efforts. It is rightfully earned. Tell me, what has your Hell Tiger race accomplished over all these years? Celestial Tiger Sovereign did not continue the verbal sparring. Instead, he turned, scanning the other gathered forces, and shouted, Everyone, Hear me. The era of the Radiant Court should come to an end. Follow me. I have already spoken with the Heavenly Court. As long as we hand over the ancestral flame to them, the Heavenly Court will help us repair our flame's defect. The Heavenly Court? Why would they do that out of kindness? Someone questioned suspiciously. Of course, the Heavenly Court has conditions, Celestial Tiger Sovereign said with a smirk. They wish to form an alliance with our fire god race. Together we can face future wars, advance and retreat as one. I see no harm in this. It benefits both sides. At his words, the Light Lord Sage Monarch let out a cold snort. I'm curious, Celestial Tiger Sovereign, what benefit did the Heavenly Court offer you? As the one who gains the most, surely your reward must be the greatest. Such petty thinking, Celestial Tiger Sovereign replied calmly. I'm doing this for the sake of the fire god race. I have already cast aside personal ambition and honor. Is that so? Because I heard the Heavenly Court promise to make you the ruler of the Inferno Crucible Heaven. The Light Lord Sage Monarch said with a faint smile. Utter nonsense. Celestial Tiger Sovereign's face darkened, and he snorted coldly. The Light Lord Sage Monarch didn't bother arguing further. Since that's the case, he said, our paths diverge. We have nothing more to discuss. Let our strength decide the rest. This formation is the Yellow Springs Annihilation Wind Formation. With it active today, your Hell Tiger race will be buried here. Leaving the chaos outside for the moment within the ancestral lands, battles raged across fractured space. Morong Qing's power was overwhelming. She had already entered the Saint's sovereign realm and, wielding control over the formation, commanded the forces of thunder as though she ruled the storm itself. She stood in an unshakable position. Beside her, Shangguan Wanner's movements were calm and measured. Su Zimo could see clearly that she was holding back her true strength. Even though the formation left her with nowhere to retreat, she endured it with ease. As for Tiger Overlord, he fared far worse. Being a member of the Hell Tiger race, he had been forced to reveal his true form, a massive tiger. The tiger's head and tail stretched a full kilometer long, its presence terrifying. A beast truly worthy of the name Hell Tiger. In any other place, Morong Qing might not have been his match. But here, countless bolts of lightning rained down like a torrential storm, surrounding the Hell Tiger completely. Crackling sounds echoed endlessly, explosions lighting up the sky. The Hell Tiger was pinned under the overwhelming might of the lightning, unable to lift its head despite its furious roars, more sound than substance. It's almost over, Shangguan Xian said calmly from the side. Far from it, Su Zimo replied with a smile. These few aren't the true protagonists of this battlefield. As he said, his words proved true. When a surge of thunder fell like divine wrath, the Hell Tiger was finally hurled away. Reverting to its human form, Tiger Overlord lay on the ground, gravely injured and barely breathing. D. Morong Qing shouted coldly. She gathered another wave of devastating thunder, ready to strike the finishing blow. Just as the lightning descended, a deafening boom shook the air. A figure appeared in front of Tiger Overlord. With a single punch, the incoming lightning shattered. Who are you? Morong Qing demanded sharply. Little brat from the Radiant Court, came a harsh, grating voice. We've waited long enough. Hand over the ancestral flame. Following the voice, two figures stepped forward. They were the same two who had entered the ancestral lands with Tiger Overlord, Tiger 1 and Tiger 2. Until now, they had remained unnoticed. But as they stepped out, Morong Qing's brow furrowed. You're not from the Hell Tiger race, she said coldly. Correct. Tiger 1 and Tiger 2 replied with sneers. We're from the Sun Moon Temple. They each reached up and tore away the masks on their faces, human skin disguises. When the masks came off, their true faces were revealed. The two who removed their masks were a man and a woman. On the man's forehead burned the mark of the sun, while the woman bore the mark of the moon. Notably, both symbols radiated divine light, an aura that could neither be forged nor imitated later in life. It was the unmistakable mark of the Sun Moon Temple. It was said that every member of the cult was born with either the sun or the moon mark imprinted on their forehead, not by human hands, but bestowed by the gods themselves. These marks grew brighter and more distinct as the person aged. Aside from that, the pair looked no different from ordinary members of the fire god race. But when Morong Qing saw them, her expression changed drastically. The Sun Moon Temple had vanished from the Inferno Crucible Heaven nearly 10,000 years ago and was long believed to have been wiped out. Ever since the incident of that year, no one had seen them again. What Morong Qing never expected was that the cult had been active all along, hidden right under their noses, and that the Hell Tiger race had secretly brought them into the ancestral lands. "This is trouble," Morong Qing muttered to herself. "Little girl, hand over the ancestral flame, and we might spare your life." The man with the sun mark sneered. "What are you planning?" Morong Qing demanded. "The Inferno Crucible Heaven does not welcome your kind. Do you intend to repeat the mistakes of the past?" "The Inferno Crucible Heaven is our home, our birthplace," the moon-marked woman said coldly. "Whether we're welcome or not isn't for a little brat like you to decide. Since you won't cooperate, there's no point wasting words." She raised her hand, and instantly, flames burst from her body, flames shaped like crescent moons. Their heat twisted the very void, burning everything around her to ash. "Kill!" the two shouted in unison. Together they charged toward Morong Qing, two blazing orbs, one like the sun, the other like the moon, colliding in the air, releasing waves of scorching destruction. Su Zimo watched calmly from a distance and said to the three beside him, "Get ready. We're leaving." "Leaving?" Xiao Anshan was the first to ask. "You mean back to the Inferno Crucible Heaven? Where else?" Su Zimo replied. "Aren't you going to help them?" Shangguan Xian asked. "That Morong Qing seems to have a decent relationship with you." "No need." Su Zimo shook his head. "They've already made their preparations. The real boss hasn't even shown up yet. This is all just foreplay." He smiled. "Besides, we've got a much more interesting target now." "You mean?" Xiao Anshan's gaze shifted slowly. Shangguan Xian's eyes followed his, and she spoke the name clearly, Shangguan Wanner. "She just snatched the ancestral flame of the Earth domain, didn't she?" Su Zimo said with a grin. "Let's make her cough it up." He stepped into the air, and the others followed close behind. When Shangguan Wanner saw them coming, her eyes narrowed. "What is this? You want to fight me?" "Fight? Why not?" Shangguan Xian snorted. "How do you want to fight?" Su Zimo smiled. 1-on-4, or should we all gang up on you? So this is how the Chaos Fire God realm behaves? Shameless, Shangguan Wanner said coolly. Or are you just afraid? You think you can't beat me? Say what you want. Shameless or not, we're doing it, Su Zimo said with a smirk. He glanced at Realm Lord Bai. You're a bit weaker. Just stay alive and look for an opening. Don't worry, Realm Lord Bai nodded. I've been wanting to try the new divine art of the 4 symbols fire progenitor. Go! Su Zimo waved his hand. The 4 of them surged forward, attacking Shangguan Wanner from all sides. Tiger Overlord, help me! Shangguan Wanner called out to Tiger Overlord. During the previous battle, the 2 Sun Moon Temple members had intercepted the fatal blow meant for him, allowing him to survive. Now he was recovering his strength. But Tiger Overlord only sneered. Miss Shangguan, our cooperation ends here. Whatever happens to you has nothing to do with the Hell Tiger race. Earlier, when they fought Morong Qing, Shangguan Wanner had deliberately held back her strength, nearly causing Tiger Overlord to die to lightning strikes. With everyone playing their own game, why would he lift a hand for her now? The surrounding 9 Nether Hellfire gathered once more. Facing Su Zimo and his group's onslaught, Shangguan Wanner still managed to stay composed, against everyone except Su Zimo. He was the one she truly feared. They had fought before, and she knew full well he was no weaker than her. As she fended off Xiao Anshan on one side and Shangguan Xian on the other, Su Zimo moved through the air like a blur. He struck forward with one palm. From his hand, The Aryan swastika god seal spun rapidly, churning the storm clouds and distorting the void. His palm crashed down, and Shangguan Wanner barely had time to block. With a deafening boom, the blow sent her flying. Her arm was torn open by the impact, blood scattering through the air. Shangguan Wanner steadied herself, her eyes burning with fury. "I'm really starting to get angry," she said. Spirit energy began to surge violently around her. Her true fate began to manifest. Behind her, a massive shadow appeared, first just a vague silhouette, then slowly taking form. The figure opened its eyes, and twin beams of black light shot forth. Its features became clearer, a woman eerily beautiful, with the pallor of a vampire. Her skin was a mix of green and dark purple. Her hair was alive with countless writhing snakes, coiling and twisting like heated strands of metal. Her figure was lithe and dangerous, her upper body clad only in a black breastplate, her lower half wrapped in tight black leather. Her features were striking, unnaturally vivid, as if born that way rather than painted. Everyone who saw her felt a chill of recognition. "That looks like," Shangguan Xian murmured. "The Dark Medusa," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "Her true fate, quite an impressive one." Medusa roared, the sound sharp and piercing. Every snake on her head came alive, hissing and flicking their tongues. "Shhhhhhh." The air filled with their screeches. Medusa exhaled a breath of malice, and the void around them began to collapse. Dark power spread outward like a storm. Medusa's wrath. Shangguan Wanner's eyes were closed, her expression solemn. Then, in an instant, they snapped open, her pupils burning with power. At the same time, Medusa opened her eyes. The world itself seemed to plunge into darkness. In Medusa's hair, countless black serpents twisted and writhed. Each snake surged forward like a torrent of pure destruction, their bodies shooting through the air like beams of annihilation. Explosions thundered endlessly, shaking the void with their fury. With Medusa's roar echoing across the sky, an instant later came a deafening boom. Thousands of black serpents rained down like a storm, attacking Su Zimo and his companions. Su Zimo raised his head slightly and swept his palm outward. Spirit energy gathered in his hand, forming a swirling vortex in his palm. The vortex expanded rapidly until it loomed before them like a giant shield. Every incoming serpent was devoured by that vortex. Shangguan Wanner didn't panic. Her right hand clenched as she whispered a single word: "Explode." A tremendous detonation followed. The serpents swallowed by the vortex detonated inside it, turning the once stable swirl of power unstable and chaotic. The air trembled. The void itself began to writhe from the shockwaves. Su Zimo snorted coldly, releasing an even greater surge of spirit energy. The vortex blazed with renewed might and swallowed the chain of explosions whole. "Damn it," Shangguan Wanner said icily. Behind her, Medusa's furious roars grew louder. This time, the massive figure raised a colossal fist and swung it straight toward Su Zimo. "Let me," Shangguan Xian said, stepping forward, divine radiance blazing from her body. "I know I'm no match for her," she said calmly, "but I want to see how far I can go." "You have 3 minutes," Su Zimo said. "I don't plan to waste time. One strike will decide it," Shangguan Xian replied. "I'll only need a minute." As Medusa's huge fist loomed before her, Shangguan Xian met it with her own punch. The two blows collided. A thunderous boom shattered the air, the void quaking violently. Su Zimo looked up. At the point of impact, space itself had torn open into a black hole, devouring everything around it with terrifying suction. "Well, my dear sister," Shangguan Wanner said with a faint smile, "you've improved quite a bit since we last met." "Same to you," Shangguan Xian replied coldly. "It almost makes me reluctant to kill you," Wanner said lightly. "I know you've always treated me as your target. You've wanted to surpass me since we were children, but you never could. Still, leaving the Shangguan Heavenly Clan because of it? That was foolish. Even after leaving, you're still no match for me. You think I left the clan just to beat you?" Shangguan Xian sneered. Didn't you? Shangguan Wan'er asked. Do you even know how my mother died? Shangguan Xian said. The Shangguan Heavenly clan's 3 daughters shared the same father but had different mothers. Shangguan Xian's mother had died decades ago, the truth long buried, until one day, Shangguan Xian learned the shocking truth. Her father had killed her. That revelation drove her to abandon the clan and begin her path of vengeance. Unfortunately, her strength had always been limited. No matter her hatred, she lacked the power to shake the family that had birthed her. I don't care about the past, Shangguan Wan'er said coldly. Right now, only one of us will leave this place alive, and it won't be you. Shangguan Xian didn't answer. Holy energy surged around her, radiant and vast as the sea. She was already gathering her ultimate technique. Seeing this, Shangguan Wan'er no longer held back. Above her, Medusa roared again, her eyes bursting with black light that shot out in a beam of destruction. That beam didn't just destroy, it froze time and space, petrifying everything it touched. Behind Shangguan Xian, a celestial spirit bird awoke, engulfed in holy flame. Its presence radiated immense power as it charged forward. The destructive beam and the celestial spirit bird collided. Their clash twisted the heavens and sent tremors through the void, even startling Murong Qing and the Sun Moon Temple battling nearby. Another boom resounded. Not an explosion, but the sound of raw force clashing. The 2 powers held for a moment. Then the celestial bird grew stronger, devouring the black beam and diving straight toward Medusa. Shangguan Wan'er's expression flickered with surprise. Interesting, she murmured. Then, with another thunderous blast, the celestial bird exploded before her. The shockwave tore through everything, swallowing Shangguan Wan'er and her manifested Medusa alike. But Shangguan Xian didn't relax. She knew her sister wouldn't fall so easily. Sure enough, as the explosion subsided, Shangguan Wan'er reappeared. Her body was gone, obliterated, but dense waves of dark power now surrounded her lingering soul. Her spirit floated upward and merged with the mark on Medusa's forehead. In that instant, an immense surge of black energy erupted. Medusa was fully reborn. The ground quaked as her massive form began to move. Each step shattered the earth and sky, every movement echoing like thunder. Medusa swung a colossal foot toward Shangguan Xian. Xian crossed her arms to block, but the sheer power still sent her flying through the air. As she tumbled, a dark beam shot from the mark on Medusa's brow, streaking toward her like death itself. Once again, I'm the one cleaning up the mess, Su Zimo said softly, shaking his head. He stood motionless, lips moving in quiet chant. Those who listened closely would realize his words formed sacred scripture, ancient, profound verses from the primeval Buddha God Scripture, one of the 10 primordial God Scriptures. The first was the present Tathagata Sutra, the second the past Maitreya Sutra, the third the future Birthless Sutra. As Su Zimo recited, golden light burst forth from his body, each ray formed by countless tiny characters of scripture. The light enveloped Shangguan Xian, shielding her completely. Even when the beam of darkness struck, it could not harm her. This was the past Maitreya Sutra. Within its power, Shangguan Xian's form had already stepped into the past itself, safe beyond the reach of any present attack. Unless one could strike across the bounds of time, no power could touch her. To kill the current Shangguan Xian, one would first have to slay the Shangguan Xian of the past, otherwise 2 versions of her from different eras could never be harmed. Indeed, even though Medusa's power was immense, her dark torrents capable of destroying everything, even space itself could not recover, Shangguan Xian remained completely unharmed. Medusa roared in fury, turning her gaze toward Su Zimo. She knew the source of everything lay with him. Only by killing Su Zimo could she claim true victory. Enough. Stand aside and watch, Su Zimo said, grabbing Shangguan Xian and tossing her to the side. Shangguan Xian did not insist on joining in again. The recent clash had let her fully sense Medusa's terrifying strength. If Su Zimo hadn't intervened, she would already be dead. Right now, she was definitely no match for Shangguan Wanner. Su Zimo smiled as he strode toward Medusa, Shadow Tyrant spinning slowly around his wrist. "What are you screaming for? Killing you is as easy as reaching into a bag," he said with a grin. He stepped into the air, invoking the god-devil creation Atlas to strengthen his divine soul, enlarging his form until he stood like a towering giant. Inside him, the heaven-shattering God Scripture gathered endless power. These were 3 of the 10 primordial God Scriptures, each giving tremendous blessings to colossal forms. With a swing of his blade, Shadow Tyrant expanded to match his own massive size. One slash fell. Space shattered. Around the blade surged wind, fire, thunder, and lightning. With that single strike, Medusa's massive arm was severed cleanly. "You're even weaker than I expected," Su Zimo said with a smirk. Medusa screamed in agony, swinging another fist toward him, her dark power erupting. Su Zimo let out a cold snort, not yielding an inch, and met the punch head-on. The 2 massive fists collided in the void with an explosion that shook heaven and earth. Both figures were forced back, Su Zimo only half a step, while Medusa was blasted backward through the air. "Again!" Su Zimo roared. The energy of his Shadow Tyrant soared into the clouds. He dragged the blade up once more and brought it down in another devastating strike. Medusa's other arm was cleaved off in an instant. Medusa's rage intensified. A sound like rushing waves echoed from her body. Looking up, Su Zimo saw streams of black rivers forming around her. Rivers whose waters were pitch dark, their surfaces fluid but their depths flowing with molten fire. "Dark fire," Shangguan Wanner's voice rang out from somewhere unseen. "Descend and destroy everything." The dark fire circled Medusa once, then surged toward Su Zimo like a tide. Su Zimo, of course, did not retreat. Behind him, the 3 gates opened, the gate of life, the gate of death, and the gate of eternity. This was the Heaven Unity 3 Gates God Scripture. The gate of eternity could temporarily block all attacks and damage. As the sea of darkness surged with deadly power, Su Zimo stood within it motionless. The others, however, had already retreated far away, not daring to come close. Medusa roared again, her power erupting as a torrent of darkness shot from her mouth. "You never learn," Su Zimo sneered. This time, his blade Shadow Tyrant struck directly at Medusa's open maw. At first, the dark torrent managed to slow the blade's advance, but as Su Zimo's aura grew stronger and stronger, he suddenly exerted his full strength. The blade slashed downward, driving straight into Medusa's mouth. She clenched her jaws, as if trying to swallow Shadow Tyrant whole. "Foolish dream," Su Zimo mocked. The power of his blade surged wildly, like a sea of hellfire, its sword intent sweeping across heaven and earth. Medusa's mouth split open, the blade's energy erupting out the back of her skull. With a thunderous crack, half her head was severed, tumbling to the ground. Su Zimo kicked her sprawling body over, then unleashed a flurry of brutal punches, pounding what was left of her into ruin. When he finally tired of the assault, he gripped Shadow Tyrant with both hands and drove it straight into Medusa's abdomen. Boom! Medusa's colossal body exploded. The blast was immense, its shockwaves sweeping out in all directions. Before anyone could react, they were all engulfed in the explosion's aftermath. "Damn it!" someone cursed. Su Zimo, however, stood calmly amidst the chaos, watching the spot where Medusa had detonated. From the center of the blast, a figure fell, Shangguan Wanner. With her true fate destroyed, she was now gravely wounded. Meanwhile, on the other side, Murong Qing was locked in a fierce battle against the 2 Sun Moon Temple elders. Though she relied on her formation to hold her ground, those 2 were incredibly powerful, both long-established Saint Sovereigns, battle-hardened veterans with immense strength and experience. Even with her formation's protection, Murong Qing was constantly on the brink of defeat. Without it, she would have fallen long ago. "So this is the successor of the Radiant Court? Disappointing." The male cultist sneered darkly. "Then why don't you try fighting me one-on-one?" Murong Qing shot back coldly. 2 against 1, How shameless. If you've got the guts, call someone to help you, the female cultist taunted. Fine, Murong Qing replied evenly. But it seems only the two of you from the Sun Moon Temple came to the ancestral lands this time. Soon enough, you'll have company. What do you mean? The two cultists frowned. Murong Qing pressed her palms together. The powerful formation, which had been spinning clockwise, filled with raging thunder and energy. Now it began to rotate counterclockwise. Reverse yin and yang. Restore time and space. Open, she chanted. The formation released a devouring force. Originally, this formation had sealed off the void, including the flow of time itself. That was why, even after the destruction of the ancestral lands, everyone here could still exist within the void instead of perishing with the collapse. In truth, the formation had merely slowed the world's destruction. But now, Murong Qing knew that continuing this battle would only worsen her odds. She had come here to expose the ones pulling the strings behind all this. It seemed, however, that she could only catch two small fish from the Sun Moon Temple. The bigger ones lay beyond her reach. So, she chose to activate the formation and take everyone out of this place. Su Zimo looked up at the swirling formation and shook his head with a wry smile. Of all the times to open it, he said, you really picked the worst one. Because the formation was now spinning counterclockwise, the entire world would soon begin to reject everything within it, forcing all beings out. But when Shangguan Wan'er saw the swirling vortex above, she laughed wildly. Heaven itself aids me. Without waiting for the world to cast her out, she rushed straight toward the vortex of her own accord. She was no longer Su Zimo's match, and she knew it. Continuing the fight would only mean certain death. As she fled skyward at full speed, Su Zimo followed close behind. He turned back and called to Shangguan Xian and the others, Come! Time to return. In the blink of an eye, all their figures were swallowed by the devouring force that had erupted from the formation. Moments later, the void of the ancestral lands completely collapsed, dissolving into the laws of the universe, never to exist again. Meanwhile, in the mountain valley, the opening of the formation had triggered a full confrontation between the Radiant Court and the Hell Tiger race. The other factions, however, held back, waiting and watching from the sidelines. Warriors of the Hell Tiger race, said the Light Lord Sage Monarch coldly. Step into the formation and face judgment, or today you'll be buried here. As soon as his words fell, laughter echoed from beyond the formation. A group of people appeared outside the formation, dressed in black and white robes, their faces hidden behind yin-yang masks. The moment they appeared, everyone's expressions changed, especially those from the Radiant Court. You're from the Sun Moon Temple? Light Lord Sage Monarch, Celestial Tiger Sovereign laughed from within the formation. Did you really think I came unprepared? I already joined forces with the Sun Moon Temple. Today marks the day your Radiant Court is wiped from the Inferno Crucible Heaven. Indeed, said the black and white-robed leader, laughing. The blood feud from hundreds of thousands of years ago will finally be avenged. The shame we suffered back then will now be returned tenfold. You will taste the same humiliation. Who are you? Demanded the Light Lord Sage Monarch, his eyes locked on the masked leader, as if trying to pierce through the disguise and see the man's true face. But the man showed no fear. He raised a hand and removed his mask. Beneath it was a horribly disfigured face, devoid of features, the skin twisted and shriveled like melted wax. It looked as though he had been burned alive, his flesh scorched and dead, leaving only the ravaged remains behind. Your Bright Sun Sovereign, the Light Lord Sage Monarch said in shock. Surprised, are you? The faceless man, Bright Sun Sovereign, laughed harshly. I survived. Ever since I escaped the heavenly fire pool by sheer luck, I've kept this face as a reminder. Every day I look at it and remember. Between you and me lies a sea of blood and hatred. Between the Sun Moon Temple and your Radiant Court, there can be no peace. I didn't expect you to live, said the Sage Monarch coldly. But if I could kill you once, I can kill you again. You only killed me back then through trickery, Bright Sun Sovereign roared. If we had fought openly, who knows who would have won? You and your radiant court have ruled the Inferno Crucible heaven for far too long, accomplishing nothing. It's time for a new ruler. Only under our Sun-Moon Temple will the Fire God race achieve true unity. Sun and Moon as one, life eternal. Sun and Moon as one, life eternal. Sun and Moon as one, life eternal. The cultists all chanted together, their voices thundering through the valley, echoing endlessly through the mountains. Sun and Moon as one, life eternal. Pathetic words from insects trying to comfort themselves, said the Light Lord Sage Monarch with cold disdain. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, I swore an oath. Anyone who joins the Sun-Moon Temple, anyone from your sect still alive in this world, I will kill them all. Even if I must slaughter millions, I will not hesitate. As the two sides exchanged words, the sky suddenly shifted. Ripples spread across the heavens, and a gate of void appeared. It was the passage from the collapsing ancestral lands. Moments later, Shangguan Wanner's figure shot out of it, disheveled and frantic. "It's Wanner!" Someone from the Shangguan heavenly clan cried out. Seeing her alive, Shangguan Xiongba finally breathed a sigh of relief. When she hadn't appeared with the others, he'd feared the worst. Although Shangguan Wanner's power was among the strongest, Xiongba was confident few could kill her. Accidents were always possible. Now, seeing his daughter safe, he shouted, "Wanner, come back quickly." But before she could respond, Su Zimo appeared in pursuit. His blade aura flashed like a streak of lightning, so fast that few could even see it. A beam of killing light cut through the sky and struck Shangguan Wanner squarely in the back. She hadn't even caught her breath after escaping when blood burst from her lips and her body fell to the ground. As Su Zimo landed, everyone finally saw his face clearly. It's that man from the Chaos Fire God realm. No way. Did even Shangguan Wanner lose to him? Wanner! Shangguan Xiongba roared in fury. Shangguan Wanner was not only his daughter, but also the pride of the Shangguan heavenly clan, raised as the future clan leader. Even the ancestral patriarch had once prophesied that she would surpass all previous generations of their bloodline. The family's future glory rested on her shoulders. Now, seeing her covered in blood and collapsing, Xiongba rushed forward and caught her in his arms. "Father, I'm fine," Shangguan Wanner said weakly, wiping the blood from her lips and forcing herself to stand. She looked at Su Zimo and smiled faintly. "This is no longer the ancestral lands. It's over. Will you still kill me here?" "Why not?" Su Zimo replied coldly. "Are you challenging my divine crow god realm?" Shangguan Xiongba's voice thundered. "What if I destroy your divine crow god realm?" Su Zimo said with the same unyielding arrogance. "Anger me further, and I'll wipe out the entire Inferno Crucible heaven." His words shocked everyone present. Murmurs spread through the crowd. "He's insane. Who gave him such confidence? Arrogant youth, he dares to speak like that." "Fire Ancestor," Shangguan Xiongba said sternly, fixing his gaze on the elder. "If I recall correctly, this man is from your Chaos Fire God realm, isn't he?" "Indeed, young Master Su is of our domain," the Fire Ancestor replied, shaking his head. "But his words do not represent us." By saying this, he had publicly severed all responsibility. And truthfully, it made sense. The Chaos Fire God realm's relationship with Su Zimo was purely transactional. Without benefit, no domain would risk an all-out war. The Fire Ancestor was not foolish enough to let pride drive him into destruction. Now that the Sun-Moon Temple had joined forces with the Hell Tiger race, their goal was clear: to overthrow the Radiant Court and reshape the balance of power within the Inferno Crucible heaven. In such a volatile situation, a single misstep, choosing the wrong side, even hesitating for a moment, could lead to utter annihilation. For the Fire Ancestor, caution was paramount. Under his steady leadership, the Chaos Fire God realm had been flourishing. So until the situation became absolutely clear, he would not rashly choose sides or engage in battle for anyone's sake. When Shangguan Xiongba heard the Fire Ancestor's words, he sneered. This was exactly what he wanted to hear. If Su Zimo truly had the full backing of the Chaos Fire God realm, an open war against him would be unpredictable. No one could say who would triumph. But if Su Zimo stood alone, that was another matter entirely. Who gave him the courage to challenge an entire God realm by himself? Are you done talking? Su Zimo interrupted, sounding bored. Because I'm starting to lose patience. Shangguan Xiongba snorted coldly, then turned to his daughter. Did you get the ancestral flame? Out of the 6 ancestral flames, we only managed to seize one, Shangguan Wanner replied. Good enough, Shangguan Xiongba said with a satisfied laugh. The other god realms didn't get any at all. Su Zimo has one from the water domain, Shangguan Wanner reminded him. If we kill him, we can take another ancestral flame. Exactly my thought, Shangguan Xiongba said, laughing heartily. He turned toward Su Zimo. Today you won't escape, not even with wings. Just you, Su Zimo said with a mocking smile. Shangguan Xiongba clapped his hands. The space around him began to ripple violently, as if the void itself were trembling. From within those ripples, giant hands tore through reality and emerged one after another. When the owners of those hands appeared, the crowd gasped in disbelief. There were 5 of them, 5 Saint Sovereigns. To mobilize 5 Saint Sovereigns at once meant that the Shangguan heavenly clan of the divine Crow God realm had committed at least a third of its greatest strength. Even a power as great as the divine Crow God realm had a limited number of Saint Sovereigns. According to most estimates, each of the major god realms possessed only 20 or 30 Saint Sovereigns at most, excluding, of course, the Radiant Court, whose true strength was shrouded in mystery and far beyond mortal comprehension. Now, around Shangguan Xiongba, the 5 Saint Sovereigns' auras surged like raging dragons, tearing the heavens apart with their presence. They did not move, nor did they attack, yet it felt as though the entire world revolved around them. These were no ordinary Saint Sovereigns. They were the 5 Elements Saint Sovereigns, someone shouted. So they really are 5 people after all, another exclaimed. What do you mean? Someone else asked. It's said that the 5 Elements Saint Sovereign was once one of the Shangguan heavenly clan's most powerful cultivators, explained the first speaker. He was considered the one most likely to break through and attain infinite Tao. But during a great battle against the Radiant Court, the 5 Elements Saint Sovereign was killed. Many mourned his death for years, but it turns out he didn't really die. He divided his power into 5 parts: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, and passed each inheritance to 5 children born at specific elemental hours. Later, those 5 grew up, mastered the 5 elemental forces, and through them, the 5 Elements Saint Sovereign was reborn, his power resurrected through their bodies. The man continued. But wasn't that a waste? Someone else argued. 5 lives sacrificed just to bring back one, and he didn't even reach infinite Tao in the end. If he had reached infinite Tao, that might have been worth it, another murmured. Let me finish, said the storyteller. After the 5 Elements Saint Sovereign's rebirth, he didn't seize their power. Instead, he shared existence with them. The 5 we see before us, they are both the original 5 Elements Saint Sovereign and the 5 successors who inherited his will. The explanation was complicated, but everyone understood the essence. The 5 Elements Saint Sovereign hadn't truly revealed his power since his rebirth. No one had expected him to personally accompany Shangguan Xiongba to the Radiant Court today. Honored ancestors, Shangguan Xiongba said respectfully, bowing. I must trouble you this time. The 5 Elements Saint Sovereigns held a status far above his own. Even as the head of the Shangguan heavenly clan, he could only speak with deference. Think nothing of it, said one of them, the Flame Sovereign, nodding slightly. He stepped forward, his body wreathed in flames. His robes were peculiar, one sleeve long, the other side bare. His left arm was covered by crimson silk, while his right arm was bare, the skin glowing faintly with molten heat. The flames that surrounded him were not ordinary. They burned endlessly, alive, as though they possessed a will of their own. The Flame Sovereign approached Su Zimo, his tone stern. Will you surrender peacefully, or must I act? I doubt one of you will be enough, Suzumo said with a smile. Better call your brothers too. Insolent! The Flame Sovereign roared. Flames burst from beneath his feet as he launched himself forward, kicking toward Suzumo with a blazing strike that fused the very air into molten light. Suzumo snorted coldly. He drew his blade, Shadow Tyrant, and unleashed a surge of blade intent that cut through the sky. Steel and flame met in an explosive clash, the tip of his blade colliding with the fiery kick. To Suzumo's surprise, the flame was alive. It didn't simply burn. It adapted. Even when torn apart by his blade energy, it instantly reformed, devouring the remnants of his attack and slowly eating away at Shadow Tyrant's power. Get out of my way, Suzumo growled. Power flared around him, rising several fold. He slashed once more, forcing the Flame Sovereign backward. But before his body even touched the ground, the saint transformed into a streak of living flame, surging forward again. His fists descended like meteors, smashing toward Suzumo with relentless fury. Their figures blurred through the void, exchanging thousands of blows in just seconds. Fist and blade collided endlessly, sparks and shockwaves lighting up the sky. Finally, both combatants pulled back, standing apart once more. The Flame Sovereign looked down at his fists, marked with fine blade scars, and laughed coldly. You're stronger than I expected. You're not bad yourself, Suzumo replied evenly. But if that's all you've got, then I'm disappointed. The blade in his hands roared, the will within Shadow Tyrant trembling with fury. The eighth form of the heaven-split blade erupted, splitting the sky in two. Suzumo leapt high, gripping his sword with both hands. For a moment, the heavens themselves seemed to be severed. The blade's edge came crashing down toward the Flame Sovereign. The saint crossed his arms before him, meeting the blow head-on. Although he had blocked the blade, the tremendous force that followed still struck the Flame Sovereign head-on, sending him crashing downward. The two figures plummeted together, and with a deafening boom, the Flame Sovereign hit the ground. Suzumo's foot stepped firmly on his head as the edge of his blade, Shadow Tyrant, slowly descended, about to split his neck in two. Flame Sovereign, I'll help you, shouted one of the other four Saint Sovereigns. The four of them charged forward at once. The Metal Sovereign wielded a colossal axe, each swing of which shattered the void itself. The metallic energy he commanded tore through the sky like an unstoppable storm. The Wood Sovereign, on the other hand, was not human in form but a colossal ancient tree. His role was that of healer. His immense restorative power could make wounds vanish in an instant. It was said that as long as he was present, even those who wished to die could not do so. The Earth Sovereign controlled the land beneath their feet. The ground twisted and roared with quakes and explosions of soil that could merge heaven and earth. As long as his feet were on solid ground, his strength was endless. The Water Sovereign's body was surrounded by streams of blue water that coiled like living serpents. Terrifyingly, his very flesh seemed to be water itself, shifting into any form at will. No physical strike could kill him. Attacking him was like trying to cut a river with a sword, futile and eternal. As the other four Saint Sovereigns joined the fray, Suzumo took several steps back, clenching his fists tightly before laughing. Now this is getting interesting. As Suzumo and the five Saint Sovereigns clashed fiercely, on the other side, outside the Great Formation, the Sun Moon Temple began to attack it. The Nether Phoenix Extinction Formation was truly formidable. Whether from within or without, it was nearly impossible to break. The Light Lord Sage Monarch stood high in the air, overlooking the battlefield coldly. "Where are the Saint Sovereigns of the Radiant Court?" he asked in an icy tone. "We are here," came solemn replies that echoed through the heavens. At that moment, countless miniature suns appeared in the sky around the great Radiant Court. If the Radiant Court was the true sun, no, it was a true sun, forged from the core of a small world. Then the smaller suns orbiting it were like planets revolving around it. Each of these smaller suns represented a Saint Sovereign of the Radiant Court, each one having comprehended the essence of solar fire and refined their own sun. A quick glance showed there were at least 10 of these suns, 10 Saint Sovereigns. Among them were once mortal emperors of the primordial heartlands, who, upon entering the 9 heavens, had ascended further into the realm of saint sovereigns. Grand Emperor Chong Kong, the Invincible Emperor, and the Mortal Emperor. Their legends were still told across the continent. When these 10 saint sovereigns appeared, the pressure they exerted was overwhelming. Even those not directly targeted could hardly breathe. Many dropped to their knees under the sheer force. The Light Lord Sage Monarch turned toward the Celestial Tiger Sovereign and sneered. "I wonder, have you brought all your Hellfire God realms saint sovereigns as well, just like the Divine Crow God realm?" Celestial Tiger Sovereign snorted heavily. "Your radiant court only knows deceit, luring us here with promises of the ancestral lands, only to trap us on your territory and outnumber us. Such dishonor is beneath contempt." "You're wrong about that," the Light Lord Sage Monarch replied with a mocking smile. "The opening of the ancestral lands was declared for all to see. No one forced you to come. In truth, it was your own greed that led you here. And besides, you arrived with the Sun Moon Temple by your side. Do not pretend your intentions were pure. In the end, the winner writes history. Why bother feigning virtue?" "Well said." The Sun Moon Temple's leader, Bright Sun Sovereign, applauded from outside the formation. "Celestial Tiger Sovereign, I told you before, you hesitate too much. If we're allied, then act like it. Stop being so cautious. Worrying about everyone will only leave you with nothing. Just break the formation," Celestial Tiger Sovereign growled. "I can hold them off for a while." He turned back toward the Light Lord Sage Monarch. "You guessed correctly. I did not bring the Saint Sovereigns of my Hell Tiger race. But I did bring something else." With that, he waved his hand, and a blinding light burst forth, radiating a sacred and terrifying power. As the glow faded, what he held was revealed, a single feather, a pure white feather emanating boundless chaotic energy. Though only a feather, the instant it appeared, it tore through the restraints of the 10 Saint Sovereigns' combined suppression. Even the Nether Phoenix Extinction Formation was ripped apart. This power surged straight into the heavens, unstoppable by any being or force. "The Primogenitor Feather," the Light Lord Sage Monarch said gravely, his eyes narrowing. The mention of the Primogenitor shook even the heavens. Legends claimed that the Primogenitor existed long before even the 9 ancient gods. In the oldest of tales, the Primogenitor was the first living being in the world's creation, perhaps human, perhaps beast, perhaps even a plant. No one knew. For all recorded history, the Primogenitor remained a mystery. No one had ever seen them. Even the most ancient beings had not. If not for the occasional discovery of a lingering Primogenitor feather, many would have dismissed the being as myth. Staring at the feather, the Light Lord Sage Monarch muttered, "You are truly willing to part with it. They say the Primogenitor feather contains the secret to finding the Primogenitor himself, and you waste it here. This feather has been in the Hell Tiger race for countless ages, and no one has ever unraveled its mystery," said Celestial Tiger Sovereign calmly. "Rather than let it gather dust, I will use it to claim vengeance." He raised his hand, and the Primogenitor feather erupted with world-shattering power. In that instant, time, space, and every law, rule, and principle in existence froze. No one could move. All they could do was watch as the feather expanded, growing until it became a pair of vast wings. Those wings folded together, sheltering the entire Hell Tiger race beneath their divine span. Then, as suddenly as it came, time resumed its flow. The warriors found they could move again, but the feeling that had just gripped their hearts, the awe and dread of a power beyond comprehension, did not fade. Those who had never seen the Primogenitor feather before could only gape in disbelief. To think such a thing exists in this world. With the protection of the Primogenitor feather above him, Celestial Tiger Sovereign now stood tall, his confidence fully restored. "Light Lord Sage Monarch, let's see if you and your Saint Sovereigns can break through the Primogenitor feather within a limited time," Celestial Tiger Sovereign said with a booming laugh. "It's been nearly 100,000 years since I obtained this feather, yet I've never witnessed its true power." The Light Lord Sage Monarch remained calm, Looking at the 10 saint sovereigns surrounding him, he said evenly, "Do your best. There's no need to force it. The feather will eventually dissipate, and the light of the sun shall once again shine upon the earth." "I'll go first," declared Saint Sovereign Chong Kong. He raised his bow with his left hand and clenched his right in the air. When he appeared, the blazing sun reflected in the heavens twisted violently, transforming into countless golden arrows. He drew one such arrow upon his bowstring, the energy of the sun gathering around him in torrents. The heavens roared with thunder as the vast spirit energy converged on the arrow. The brilliance at its tip was blinding. Those who dared to look directly at it screamed in agony as their eyes were seared blind. "Ah! My eyes! My eyes! Don't look at it! That's the solar arrow." When Saint Sovereign Chong Kong finally loosed his arrow, the heavens quaked with an explosion that could shake gods and ghosts alike. The arrow streaked through the sky like a burning star, turning into a blazing sun itself, descending to annihilate all. The roaring heavens echoed endlessly as the sun crashed against the primogenitor feather. Sensing danger, the feather released its ancient power. Its radiance shone brighter than ever, sacred and eternal. Chaos energy surged from the wings formed by the feather, spreading through the air in waves. The primogenitor feather's wings slowly unfurled, releasing countless glowing plumes that swirled through the void. The solar arrow, now a radiant orb, fell from the sky, only to be caught by a massive hand formed from the swirling feathers and chaos energy. The sun burned, trying to incinerate the ancestral hand, but the chaotic aura was impervious to all laws. As the giant hand turned, it forced the sun to spin with it. With a final thunderous crash, the power of the sun weakened, dimmed, and was crushed to pieces in the palm of the hand. Seeing this, Saint Sovereign Chong Kong's eyes hardened, and he stepped back silently. "I'll try next," said Invincible Sovereign, stepping forward. Outside the Nether Phoenix Extinction Formation, under Bright Sun Sovereign's command, the Sun Moon Temple began their assault on the formation. Unlike traditional methods of breaking formations, finding the formation's core and dismantling it, they chose brute force. They would shatter the entire formation with overwhelming power. At Bright Sun Sovereign's gesture, over a dozen followers appeared, pushing forward a massive sphere, the Sun-Moon Orb. Half of it shone with the brilliance of the sun, the other half glowed with the cool light of the moon. In this immense sphere, sun and moon harmoniously coexisted in perfect balance. "Everyone, form the seal of Sun-Moon with me," Bright Sun Sovereign shouted. He stood at the front, forming intricate seals with both hands. Behind him, dozens of cultists mirrored his every motion in perfect unison. As the seals took shape, glowing spheres appeared in each person's palms, miniature replicas of the great sun-moon orb before them. Those within the formation, seeing this miraculous sight, gasped in awe. "What is that?" someone asked. "The Sun-Moon Temple has stayed hidden for so long that people have forgotten even their greatest treasure," an elderly voice replied. "That is the Sun-Moon Orb, a supreme treasure born of heaven and earth themselves. Legend says that when it turns, nothing in existence can stand against it." "No way, if that's true, doesn't that make the Sun-Moon Temple invincible?" another asked in disbelief. "Not quite," the elder said with a faint smile. "Though they obtained the orb long ago, no one has ever gained its full acknowledgement. Without that, they can't wield its true power. Every time they activate it, they pay a terrible price. See those followers behind Bright Sun Sovereign? Their sacrifices to fuel the orb's might. The true elites of the Sun-Moon Temple remain hidden in the shadows. Still, with something that powerful, doesn't that mean the Radiant Court is in danger?" the onlooker asked. "Danger?" the old man snorted, glancing up at the blazing temple above. "You clearly don't understand the heritage of the Radiant Court. As long as that exists, there's no such thing as danger." Inside the formation, the 5 Elements Saint Sovereigns had surrounded Su Zimo at the center. After a fierce and brutal battle, both sides bore deep wounds. The onlookers were stunned. Su Zimo, fighting alone against 5 Saint Sovereigns, showed no sign of defeat. If anything, his strength only grew more ferocious the longer he fought. "Wall of Earth!" the Earth Sovereign roared. The ground beneath them heaved and rose into jagged hills, surrounding Suzumo like a fortress. But that was only the beginning. The Water Sovereign and Flame Sovereign joined forces, merging their powers of flame and flow. Being elemental opposites that complemented one another, their combination was seamless. Outside the rising hills of Earth, layers of burning water and boiling fire intertwined, forming another barrier. "Everyone, combine our powers. Seal him with the force of the 5 elements," shouted the Wood Sovereign impatiently. As the healer among them, he had suffered the most, targeted relentlessly by Suzumo, who sought to break their balance by striking their support. He had nearly fallen several times already. At the center of the suppression, Suzumo stood blood-soaked, gripping Shadow Tyrant tightly. The blood on him, his own and that of the Saint Sovereigns, gleamed darkly in the dim light. Though wounded, his expression showed no fear, only laughter. "Come on. Again. Let's go." "This man's a lunatic," muttered the Flame Sovereign, nodding grimly as he agreed to the Wood Sovereign's proposal. 5-element suppression. The 5 Saint Sovereigns sat cross-legged, chanting in unison. Around them, the powers of the 5 elements erupted: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, interweaving like threads of creation itself. The 5 streams of power shot upward, each a different color, piercing the heavens. Above them, the sky began to twist. A massive, mysterious vortex formed overhead, swirling with unimaginable force. As the energies merged, the 5 elements transformed, melding into the power of yin and yang. Thus came the principle. 5 elements beget yin and yang merge into chaos. 2 colossal dragons, one black, one white, began to coil and roar within the storm. Yin and yang, these 2 forces represented the balance of all power. The black and white dragons coiled around each other like an enormous rope, their overwhelming force plunging down from the heavens. Everything in their path was obliterated. Finally, the twin dragons crashed into Suzumo's body, and an immense pressure spread across the sky, swallowing everything in its wake. "Back away!" spectators shouted in panic. People retreated in haste, but those too slow to evade were instantly erased by the shockwave. Even a mere ripple from the blast carried the might to annihilate a saint, so one could only imagine what kind of force Suzumo, caught in the very center, was enduring. A deafening explosion thundered through the air. Many instinctively sealed their hearing, for the roar was unbearable. The forms of the black and white dragons gradually merged, channeling every ounce of their destructive might into a single dive. A towering mushroom cloud erupted into the sky. "He should be dead, right?" Flame Sovereign muttered uncertainly. Everyone stared toward the spot where the cloud boiled, but it refused to dissipate. The black smoke continued to churn and spread. "There's something wrong with that cloud," someone said suddenly. "That's not smoke from an explosion. It's demonic energy. That mushroom cloud is formed of pure demonic energy," another exclaimed. The 5 elements Saint Sovereigns all sensed the anomaly. The 5 quickly withdrew. Within the storm of dark energy, a figure began to appear: Suzumo. Even his weapon, the Shadow Tyrant, pulsed with malevolent energy, roaring and trembling in resonance. The power didn't stop there. The demonic aura around him burst upward, flooding the sky. The heavens had changed again, once filled with the blazing fire of the sun, then with the primordial chaos of the primogenitor feather, and now ruled by demonic will. Suzumo's gaze swept across the battlefield. He was no longer just a warrior, he was a demon king incarnate. "Kill him!" The 5 elements Saint Sovereigns roared in unison. Their combined elemental forces converged again, forming another pair of yin-yang dragons that dove from the heavens to devour him. Suzumo only sneered. "So this is all you've got left? 10 forms of demon, first form, realm demon. No boundaries, no limits. where illusion becomes divinity. These 10 forms of demon were techniques passed down from the previous infernal lord. Su Zimo had rarely used them. His other divine arts were already enough to dominate peers within his realm. But facing 5 saint sovereigns whose powers intertwined and counterbalanced one another, he decided it was time. This first form embodied the pinnacle of spatial control. With a flick of his hand, the very fabric of space split in two. Above him, the Yin-Yang dragons roared violently, but above the 5 elements saint sovereigns, an identical pair of dragons appeared, descending toward them with unstoppable fury. Everyone watching froze in disbelief. "It's an illusion?" said the Wood Sovereign first. "Have you ever seen an illusion this real? This powerful?" Flame Sovereign shouted, feeling the crushing pressure of the dragon's descent. "Move! Get away!" he yelled, but it was already too late. The range of the attack was too vast. Escape was impossible. Twin explosions detonated simultaneously, one over Su Zimo, and one over the 5 elements saint sovereigns. The black dragon tore apart the clouds, its energy sweeping across the entire battlefield. The clash of the 5 elements met itself in a storm of annihilation. The screams of the saint sovereigns rang out as they were engulfed. The assault had come too suddenly for them to muster their defenses. When the fury finally faded, the battlefield was in ruins. The 5 elements saint sovereigns lay broken and bleeding on the ground. Even the Wood Sovereign, usually the healer, completely drained of life force. At best, it's mutual destruction. He can't have survived that either. Flame Sovereign rasped, forcing the words out through pain. They turned their eyes toward Su Zimo's side and froze. The Yin-Yang dragons that had fallen upon him were gone. Su Zimo stood unharmed. 4th form, Celestial Demon. Power surged around him as he raised his hand. It was as if he held heaven and earth themselves, as if he could pluck stars from the sky. When the twin dragons lunged toward him, he reached out and grasped them. The mighty dragons struggled, their pride as divine forces defied. But in Su Zimo's grip their resistance was meaningless. "Futile," he said coldly. With both hands he crushed their throats, then struck forward with a single blow. Boom! Their heads exploded into mist. The overwhelming force that could annihilate mountains had been snuffed out as if it were nothing. "Do you have any other tricks?" Su Zimo said, his voice steady, contemptuous. "If not, you'll have no chance left." The 5 elements saint sovereigns glared back, gritting their teeth. After exchanging a look, they all nodded once. They raised their palms, releasing 5 lights, each representing an elemental color. 5 elements as one, saint phenomenon. Their bodies went still, life extinguished as they fell where they stood. Yet at the point where their powers converged, 5-colored radiance erupted, and from the fusion of their energy, a figure slowly emerged. "Teach the 5 elements saint sovereign?" Even Shangguan Xiongba, watching from afar, stammered in shock. The 5 elements saint sovereign had once been the pride of the Shangguan heavenly clan, the one most likely to ascend to infinite Tao. Though the later generation had revived 5 separate saint sovereigns, they were merely fragments of the original. The true 5 elements saint sovereign had once embodied all 5 forces in one body: earth, fire, water, wood, and metal, perfectly balanced. That was the sage monarch. That was true power. None had expected that the fusion of these 5 would resurrect the original being. This secret, perhaps, was known only to the 5 of them. "How many ages has it been?" the figure murmured as he stepped forth. 5 lights, each color of the elements, flowed across his body in perfect harmony, as though heaven itself had decreed that this was the natural order of things.